Good evening. I'd like to call the March 20, 2019 meeting of the ALRC to order. A couple of administrative items before we get into the official agenda. A number of you have registered to speak, and to do that you would have filled out this speaker form. If you do have an interest in speaking and or registering for or against any item on the agenda, please fill this out. You can give it to Mr. Verbeek, our Deputy City Clerk. If we don't have record that you want to speak, we may end up moving past the agenda item and not calling on you. So be sure, if you want to get your oar in the water, you fill out that sheet. When you are speaking, we'd like to ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So load up the important stuff at the front end. Mr. Verbeek has a timer here, and you'll hear it go off when we get to 3 minutes. And I'd like to ask you to kind of finish the sentence you're in and wait for a member of the committee to ask for more time on your behalf if the committee is interested in doing that. So we are governed by Robert's Rules of Order. And when you are speaking, please just address the members of the committee. We won't be having any interaction with you until we get into our the discussion part of our agenda. So with that, do we have any notified absences for this evening?
Yes, Alder Bedar Seeloff said she would not be here today.
Okay. So with that, would you then call the roll?
Sure. Alder Bedar Seeloff is notified absence. Cano-Espina?
Present.
Donnelly?
Present.
Fletcher?
Here.
Grady?
Here.
Landgraf?
Present.
Skidmore?
Here.
Revere?
Here.
We have quorum.
Okay. So the first official item on our agenda is approval of the February 20 minutes that were distributed via Legistar. And looks like Mr. Donnelly has a question about the minutes.
I've got two corrections. So in item 22, it was originally 938 for the capacity, and now it's 738. The number 9 is still there, stricken out. I think we should remove it entirely so that we don't run the risk that at some stage we lose the formatting,
Okay.
and it looks like a capacity of 9,738.
Okay.
And for item 26, the same things, remove the stricken out numbers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Further questions or suggested changes by members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended? With those two changes, do we have a second? Second. Okay, motion and a second to approve the minutes with Mr. Donnelly's two suggested changes. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for members of the committee to identify if they have if there's any agenda item that they may have a potential conflict with, and we like to have those disclosures made, and if there's going to be any recusal on the part of a member to participate in an item, we'd like to know that right now. So do we have any disclosures or recusals on any of the agenda items by any of the members? Okay, seeing none. Then the next item on the agenda is the presentation of a consent agenda. Each week or each month we look at the agenda as proposed, determine which items are more administrative in nature, and to allow more time for interaction on critical items, we lump all those administrative items together in something called a consent agenda. The consent agenda is approved by a single motion. So if the item you are here for is on the consent agenda, unless it's removed from the agenda by a member of the committee, all of those will be approved in a single motion. So I'm going to ask Mr. Verbeek to briefly identify the item number and the name of it, just to give you an idea of what's on it, and then we'll go back and ask if any member of the committee wants to have any changes made to those. Mr. Verbeek.
All right, so recommend the council to grant change range number 9, entity reorganizations 11, 12, 13, and 14, and public hearing new license 21.
Okay, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 21 are the items on the consent agenda. Any adjustments to that? Mr. Kano Espina?
So, item 20, the elder asked to be put on the consent agenda. I didn't hear that read. I don't know.
So the background check for the agent did come up with something, so I did not put it on the consent agenda for that reason.
Thank you.
Captain Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to have an opportunity to discuss number 21, so if we can pull that from the consent agenda.
Okay. So 21 is off the consent agenda. Other comments on the proposed agenda? Okay, seeing none, then Mr. Verbeek will go through it again, and he'll read the formal title of the items that are on to put in context our motion.
All right, the proposed consent agenda for ALRC meeting March 20, 2019. Recommend the council grant number 9, change of agent, Quick Trip, Inc. Number 11, entity reorganization, Texas Roadhouse Holdings, LLC. Number 12, entity reorganization, Select Hotels Group, LLC. Number 13, entity reorganization, Whole Foods Market Group, Inc. And number 14, entity reorganization, Williamson Street Grocery Cooperative.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Fletcher?
I'll move adoption.
Okay. There we go. A motion and a second. Always need both. Further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So items 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14 were just approved. So if those were your items, you're free to leave. We won't be having any further discussion on those. If you have no other place to go, you're more than happy to hang out with us for the rest of the meeting. All right, that then takes us to our operator license. We have 3 operator licenses identified, and we have 1 registrant for item 1, Sandra Gillian? Ah, okay. You can use this microphone right here.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you have any people here with interpreters?
We do, but Mr. Verbeek suggested we do this one first because we pay the interpreter for an hour, whether we use them or not, so. Okay, so when you submitted your application, the committee, the staff, in this particular case, the police department, goes over the applications and uses a series of criteria, and if any application strikes on one of those criteria, we pull the application and ask the applicant to come in, which is what happened with you. So Captain Friedman is going to identify what item on your application was the issue, and then you'll have an opportunity to talk to the committee about that. Captain Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. So as the chair said, Ms. Gillen, there's a routine check done every time somebody applies. The records folks in my department use a variety of databases and other means, and when they ran you through our system, there were a couple of things that resulted in a review, and then you being here to have an opportunity to explain and or answer any questions that the committee might have. So the first issue is that back in 1996, our records show you were convicted of a felony, although that was a long time ago. That does is a guideline 1 violation, which is any conviction of a felony. So that's one of the things that's driving it. And just for the group, it was a drug-related offense, which I have a little bit more information on, but given the age, it'll be limited. The other thing is that in looking at your application, you did note that you had been convicted of a felony or misdemeanor, but you didn't list that arrest or a couple of other arrests that are also from a long time ago, 1998 drug paraphernalia, and a 2001 resisting or obstructing an officer. So those are a Guideline 5 violation, and Guideline 5 says you must truthfully and completely fill out the applications. And so those things were missing, those details were missing, and that's why you get to talk to us tonight, so.
Okay. So, do I need to explain that?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't put it on the application. It was my mistake. But it is true, and it was a long time ago, and I've done a lot of things to better myself, so. I'm currently helping my fiance run a business, and been working with him, doing paperwork and also the labor work.
Okay.
And I haven't had any arrests since 2000. So it's been 19 years, and I've been good.
Okay, questions of the applicant from any of the committee? Alder Revere.
Hi.
Hi.
So to let you understand the process a little further, there actually is a state statute that says that we're prohibited from granting you this license unless we make a finding that your conviction isn't substantially related to what we're licensing you for. So if I could hone in on the felony, so you did admit that you are a convicted felon, you admittedly many, many years ago.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us a little more about the disposition of that conviction? Like, what was the sentence, for
It
example?
was possession with intent to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want like a background of that? How-
Well, there's a couple of issues. One is the veracity, the fact that you failed to disclose all of the convictions actually that showed up on here. What you did say was operating after revocation, and that didn't actually even show up in the background check.
Right.
But in terms of the state law that we're bound to follow, we have to hone in on the felony conviction unless you were, pardoned or it was expunged.
Right.
So could you just tell us a little more about, like what was the sentence? Did the court order counseling? Were you on Department of
probation.
Corrections supervision?
I got 3 years probation.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't follow through with my probation, so then I ended up getting locked up and doing my time.
I see.
And I was released from everything after that.
I see. So your probation was revoked?
Yes,
Okay. But again, this was in the 1990s?
yes.
Okay.
I just got into with the wrong people.
I understand. And
I'm trying to do better now, and all I can do is move ahead, but this keeps hindering my ability to move on with certain things because it's always going to be there.
yeah, unfortunately.
Just trying to get through that part.
So because that was, was related to cocaine and there were some other convictions of the similar sort, can you just give this committee the assurance that that's not an issue in your life anymore? You were able to fight that and...
It's absolutely not a problem. I was charged with possession with intent to deliver because I was taking it for somebody else. I just was in the wrong spot, the wrong time. But I'm owning up to what I did, I'm not saying that I didn't do it, but I'm just saying that I moved on from that. I was young, did a lot of stupid stuff, and I'm 53 years old now, so I have we're running a business, we're doing the right thing, so,
That all sounds great. So you're saying that you've been clean for a long time in terms
Yes.
of any drug addiction issues?
absolutely.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And I see your manager came here with you. She deserves a lot of credit. She comes to a lot of our meetings.
Right.
I don't know if you registered or not, but since you're here, if you don't mind filling out one of the forms you filled out for us in the past, would you mind coming forward just and answering a question or two, starting out with identifying yourself for us and that you and the company were familiar with what we would call her an applicant, but the applicant's background, I presume she's already working with you.
Yes, she's been working with me for about 2 months. I'm the manager. My name is Carol at Stop and Go on University Avenue. Sandy is one of my top people. I'm trying to train her into bookkeeping, and then she's going on to be my assistant. And I trust her completely. I have no problem with her whatsoever.
Very good. And thanks for coming to so many of our meetings. It shows you care about your people.
I do. They're great people.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you and good luck. I have no further questions for you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you. I don't know if there are other questions of the committee.
Any, Mr. Kano Spina?
Move to grant.
Second.
Motion and a second to grant the license. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 2, operator number 2, Terrence Hatchett. Terrence, I believe. You can step right up over here. Were you here for the introduction? You can, right here. Were you here for the introduction of the previous applicant?
I was not. I was a little late.
Okay, well, then I'll just briefly mention it again. When you filled out your application, there's a series of criteria that the police department uses in the process of double-checking the material on the application, and if there's any discrepancies, we separate the application and ask the applicant to come in and talk to us, and that's what happened with you in your application. So Captain Friedman will tell you what the items were, and then you'll have an opportunity to talk to the committee about those. Okay? Captain Friedman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. So as the chair said, there's a process we go through. We did our records check, and there were 2 convictions, one from 2018 for disorderly conduct and one from 2016. It's the 2018 conviction in particular. We have a guideline 2A, which is 1 or more offenses within the last 5 years involving violent crimes against a person of another, including disorderly conduct. And so that is what resulted in you getting a chance to come up here and answer any questions that the committee may have.
Mr. Fletcher.
Hi, good evening. Could you just briefly explain for the committee the context behind each of the offences that came up on the disorderly conduct and the possession of a controlled substance?
Definitely sure. I believe 2016, I think that was when I had a car accident or whatever, and I think some things were found in the car, but it wasn't exactly my car. It was, but it was shared with someone else. So I think that's what that was. I'm not exactly sure. You can let me know if I'm wrong. And as far as 2018 goes, that was just something that happened outside of work in another neighborhood where I used to live, just like getting into it with some people.
Was alcohol a factor in either of the?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Questions of the applicant? Alder Revere.
Thank you. Welcome. And I can confirm this with the police captain as well, but in terms of first of all, congratulations on your veracity. So unlike the last applicant, you gave us more information than you even needed to in terms of not what we asked, because you followed the instructions, but in terms of what we're concerned with, you gave us, like insurance citations that aren't a factor for us, to be honest with you. So as my colleague just asked you about, the two that are most recent and that at least started out as criminal issues that we are concerned with that meet our so-called guidelines, again, the disorderly conduct from last year and the controlled substance from 2 years before that. Do you remember what the disposition of your cases were? In other words, what did the court have you do? Was it just pay a fine? Or was it more
Yeah,
substantial than that? Like,
2016, yeah, both. It just resulted in tickets.
they were actual citations?
Mhm.
Okay. So you didn't actually have to do something like first offenders program or
No,
any sort of
for 2018, I had to go
treatment
to
or?
court a couple times, but it just resulted in a ticket.
So you like started out as criminal and then it ended up being non-criminal? Is that,
I
if you,
I believe so.
okay. Mhm. Okay.
I just know I was going to court to clear it up, so. And it ended in like November. It resulted in a ticket.
But you definitely just had to pay fines for each of the two things we're talking about here? Okay, thank you. And then Captain Friedman, could you just confirm, am I reading the records section information correct, that both ended up as forfeitures?
That's correct. They started as state charges and appear to have gone to the county equivalent, and so were forfeitures.
Okay, thank you very much.
Further questions of the applicant? Motion and a second? Were you a second, Mr. Canosman? Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second to grant the license. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And our third registrant, LaConda Williams. Committee's pleasure with regard to third applicant, Mr. Fletcher.
Move to refer.
Second.
Motion and a second to refer operator license application for LaConda Williams to our next meeting. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So then we'll move to the interpreter item, which is number 17. Yes, public hearing, new license for Laurel Garden LLC, doing business as TBD. And we have, I believe, several registrants for that.
That's her lawyer.
Okay, so, yes, if you two would step up, and I believe your attorney, Mr. Holtzman, will be joining you as well. And,
The applicant should go first.
yeah. Yeah, well, I know we've got the interpreter and the applicant. Let's just do the two of you, and then we'll get your attorneys up here when we get into questions. Oh,
I'm sorry,
I thought he was.
that was my fault. Apparently he's here.
Okay,
You're Ron Trachtenberg's partner? Yes. You can join her in the voting if you're her counsel.
And Mr. Trachtenberg wished he could be here, but on his way here, he broke his ankle with his turn. He reversed it. That's why you have me rather than Mr. Trachtenberg.
and,
Give our well wishes.
And Attorney Trachtenberg had this gentleman here available to answer questions, but since I was so familiar with the issue, he asked me to come and make the presentation with Laura here to answer questions if need be. But it's helpful to have the interpreter here to keep her apprised.
well, we got a cluster of folks up here, and I want to make sure we get this in the correct order. Your presentation is
Why don't you let me start, and if there's questions for Laura, they could follow up with that.
Not everybody knows Steve.
Yeah. Well, before we do that, this is somewhat irregular. Anybody have any problem?
I don't know
Assistant City Attorney Allen.
First and foremost, swear in the interpreter before we go any further.
Right, okay. But after that, do you have any concerns?
As Alder Verveer pointed out, not everyone knows everyone, and a corporation can only appear by its officers or its attorneys. So I don't know the relationship of the people
Okay,
up here.
all right, well, we'll sort that out. So the first thing we'll do then is to swear in the interpreter. Mr. Rubik.
If you can raise your right hand. Do you affirm that you'll accurately interpret Mandarin to English and English to Mandarin?
Okay, so to sort things out, we have the applicant, and we have Matthew. You are the attorney representing the applicant?
Attorney Matt Suing of Furman and Dodge, representing the applicant.
Okay.
Laura Garden LLC.
Okay. And I understand from what Mr. Holtzman was saying that another member of your firm had asked him to come and be part of this, and you're,
Correct. So
you and
attorney-
the applicant are comfortable with that?
I'm personally comfortable with that.
I'm sorry?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm-
All right. So then what we can do is, as you had suggested, Mr. Holtzman, why don't you step up, introduce yourself, explain your relationship. I think we know it, and then you can proceed to explain things. And then if there are questions, I understand the applicant will be responding to those.
Very good.
Okay, because you're not a member of the corporation, so you
That's
can't
correct.
really respond on her behalf.
I can provide some background and then get to it.
Okay, so introduce yourself for everyone.
Thank you. I'm Steve Holtzman. I got involved with this matter just from being a customer at Koi Sushi. You're probably familiar with it, 502 State Street. It was an extraordinary establishment for me, not only because of the great food and the great sushi, but they also provide an extraordinary service to the community of Chinese students, serving over 1,000 meals a week just to those students alone. And so that impressed me, and I got further involved after a couple of meals there when I found out that the applicant is opening up a convenience store at 1403 Regent Street. I just facilitated her making contact with the neighborhood association, the Midtown District with Captain Langfeld, and later set up a meeting where she could present this, her plans to the Vilas Neighborhood Association that happened on site January 31st. Lieutenant Shalucky attended that meeting, and we were told by Captain Langfeld that the police had no concerns about the application. We had a referral at the February 20th meeting that she was originally scheduled to be before, because she wanted to present to the entire Vilas Neighborhood Association board, not just those that showed up on January 31st. So on February 26th, she had a meeting with the Vilas Neighborhood Association with a thorough presentation of her plan and a unanimous approval from the Neighborhood Association. The Alderman Arnsten did send a copy. I believe you have this in your packets, a copy of the Vilas Neighborhood Association minutes from February 26th, and where this is approved for the license with 10% of total sales to be the maximum for alcohol sales. Also handed out today were two floor plans. The one that does not have the street name at the top shows a configuration that she will start with where there is no kitchen facility. Right now, the to-go meals that will be offered there will be prepared at her restaurant on State Street. However, later, she does plan to open a kitchen, and you can see in the second floor plan that is labeled with the street names on it, does show where that future kitchen will be. This does not change anything where the alcohol sales will be confined to, or anything about the times, the percentage of sales. There's simply going to be a kitchen added sometime in the next few months. I do have my pass from the emergency room where I went and picked up all these papers from Attorney Trachtenberg. It was only about 4 o'clock that he fell and broke his ankle and asked me on an emergency basis to come in here and hand out the floor plans and just give you some background. So he wanted this other attorney to stand in his place to answer questions that may come up, and then the applicant is also here.
Okay, so that's the presentation, so now we're to questions, or did anybody else have anything to offer?
Nothing further to add.
Okay, all right. So, questions of the applicant? Mr. Donnelly?
Thank you. So can you briefly tell us just what this business is going to be? Because I think that's the one bit we didn't get.
The plan is to do a retail store on the region location. Kind of like a little bit like the fast food kind of grocery store, and then a little bit. Something similar to 7-Eleven, and also it will have packaged food for sale also.
Cool, thank you.
And then it will have cigar, like cigarettes and beer or liquor.
Cool. So the application does not have a lease attached. Who owns the building?
It's a family member who owns the property.
Is there any kind of written agreement, or is it just a handshake agreement?
At the moment, I do not have anything written lease, because it's a family member. We work kind of like a partnership, so there isn't anything in writing at this time. But if it needs to be, we could have one.
So next, I want to just make sure that you understand a thing about the license. So because this is a Class A license, do you understand that no one can consume alcohol on premises?
Yes.
Excellent. And for the other licensed establishments in this area, in this part of the city, there's a set of conditions that we have on all of the licenses. So these are not conditions that have anything to do with you or your business. They have to do with the area and controlling problems in that area. So I'm going to say what these conditions are, and it is likely that someone is going to suggest adding them to this license if we approve it.
他就说，他因为那个附近的有其他的酒牌商店在上面酒，他就是说，他那个你那个酒牌可能呢那个条件呢应该不需要加，可是有可能他会现在告诉你，可能以后如果就是以防其他的商店有什么问题的话，他可能会加上去。他现在告诉你现在这些条件是什么东西。
Okay. You ready? Okay, so the first condition, the establishment shall not sell, dispense, or give away fermented malt beverages in the original container in amounts less than the amount contained in a 6-pack of 12-ounce bottles or cans. And then there's something that says it only applies to certain categories of of alcohol, basically to exclude craft beer so that that can be sold in smaller quantities.
Okay, I'm going to try to explain that. I might have you repeat it for me.
Absolutely.
他就是说啊，如果你在商店买酒的话，它有一些东西呢，你不能，就是拆开来卖，不能就是他有说了，因为6瓶的一起卖的话，就是6瓶一起卖，不能分开来卖。可是不是
Oh, yeah, sure.
所有的酒都是一样，可是有时候他会告诉你，看看有什么维持的酒精，就是他会写。
Thanks, Mike. If this might be easier, Alder Verveer has a copy of them.
他就是讲真的那个需要什么，或者是4个酒精一起在这里。
Okay, so the second condition is that flavored malt beverages of up to 6% alcohol can't be sold in amounts less than a 4-pack.
他就说第2个条件就是那6%的有酒精的东西呢，不能卖掉，不能送给人，因为这不能倒掉。如果他一共是12瓶，就是一盒，不能就是卖少过4瓶的，分开的嘛，就是他不买1瓶嘛，对。
And then higher alcohol content has to be in a 6-pack.
所以高一级的酒精呢，一定要6瓶一起买，不能低过买6瓶。
Okay. The third one is that you can't sell bottles of liquor that are 200 milliliters or less.
第3个条件就是说，不能卖那瓶酒，就是低过200的那个，不能每一个都不能低一点的。
And then the fourth one is that you can't sell fortified wine.
就是不能买掉或者送人给就是有那个或者那个白酒或者是红酒或者是这种，就是抽过12瓶的那个酒精。那这不都就是啤酒和红酒吗？那就没有那个啤酒，这不都是啤酒和红酒吗？红酒跟啤酒在这边的烈酒。Can you explain the fortified wine what that is?
Let's see.
是不是全是像这样的，还是只
So the key is that you've got something that starts out as wine, and then you add additional spirits to it to make it stronger.
But the normal like white wine or red wine,
Totally
that's okay.
fine. Yep.
他是说白酒和红酒都可以，就是呢 fortified wine 就是跟其他的地方混在一起买，就是白酒、红酒都可以，可是不能混在一起再卖出去。
Okay. So what questions do you have about this?
我可以卖烈酒对不对？你问他我可以卖烈酒对不对？看他是烈酒，烈酒就是那种白酒比较浓度高一点的，浓度比较高的，这个是红酒的浓度。高一点。你就是说希望买高一点那个？我给的 license 就是拿我想拿高一点的，问他是不是可以，是不是可以那个 ？Can you can I sell like normal liquors? For example, kind of like vodka or rum that's a little higher.
As long as the bottle is larger than
Yes, about-
200 milliliters.
Okay, 就是超过200，那个可以。
And if this helps, all of the liquor distributors are familiar with these. And if you say, I have this, I mean, you can send them a copy and they will understand. And they can probably help with that.
跟那个卖酒那个商店买的话，你给他一张纸，他会告诉你哪一些他不能给你，他会跟你说。
And I said this before, but just to repeat, this has nothing to do with you. These are conditions for all of the places that are retail selling alcohol in that area.
他这一张的条件
Thank you.
不只是只有你，就是全部那个周围卖酒的都需要根据那个条件去卖酒。 我还是可以卖掉，就只是一瓶一瓶的。Yeah, thank you.
Okay, we have 3 folks in the queue, Assistant City Attorney Allen, Alder Revere, and then Mr. Kano Espina.
Thank you. My question may go more to the attorney. I understand that you're kind of pinch hitting here tonight, so I'll throw a couple of softballs at you, hopefully. The LLC, did your firm assist in developing the LLC?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay, so-
I could certainly get back to you with that as soon as I can.
Right. Your client stated that she is in partnership with a family member, but I don't think I heard the name of that family member identified.
I own the building. I own
You own the building?
no, I own half.
So you own half the building? The client says she owns half the building? Who's the name of the other half?
他想这个外人这个人的名字，那名字江金书，江金书。Oh, the other name, 江金书，孙金江。
That's the name, the other person's name that she talked about, the owner.
Do those names appear on a deed or a title anywhere?
看这个地址牌有没有他的名字在那边？No, house, the building name is him.
It's under his name.
Would you be able to present that to the Common Council at the time they take up any recommendation from the ALRC?
Yes.
What happens to the ownership of this LLC if your partner is dissatisfied with your performance?
他就说，如果你另一半就是另外那个人，他如果不高兴，或是对你这个工作有问题的话，那个。This store is I own. I own the store. I own the LLC. It's I own.
Okay, so let me try and understand this. If you own this business, then this LLC that's here tonight does not own the property. It does own the property as well?
Oh, not, I'm not writing, no. Not on the building. Not writing. 没有写到。
And again, I know you're just pinch hitting here, but that's you understand that's a critical distinction for the ALRC, because they're issuing a license and they need to know whether A, you have a legal right to occupy the property, and B, they need to know the identity and do a background check on all the owners of the LLC getting this license. And we don't have that information here tonight. Is there any reason why? Okay. Is there any reason why a majority of this license application has been left blank?
他就说，为什么你那个填的表上没有全部填好？可能就是很多地方没有填好。另外一个呢，他就是说，因为你跟另外一个人就是一起买那个商店嘛，不是那个公司名字，所以如果他在申请那个酒牌的话，就是全部原来这个申请就要名字。对，他那个building 就是给他就是我借的一部分钱给他，就是这样。就是 You know, my family buy the building. I just borrow half the money for him to buy the building, but I'm not on the building, so he just borrow my money. But I own the store. I own store.
I appreciate that answer, but I'd like to ask about completion of the application. Why was the majority of it left blank? This is not your first time before the ALRC seeking an alcohol license.
I stayed at the office. I just asked them how to. I went to the office. I tell me how to application to writing. I don't know. Just someone help me look at it. In the office, I application the office. They help me look at it.
You understand you're responsible for the completeness of the application. Do you?
Yeah, I don't. 因为我以为我的律师会帮我给他起稿，那不是问题。
Now, I'm also trying to understand your concept of operations. You want to be a prepared food grocery store. That's what you've told the Vilas neighborhood, correct?
Yes.
But the drawings you've submitted include what looks like a lunch counter with a flip-up pass-through in the middle of this counter, much like a bar or a restaurant.
大 store 然后中间有一个地方可以摆那个卖那个 prepared food，它只是有一个 area 卖那个 prepared food，它只是有一个地方有一块。
There, on one of the floor plan, it just has a small area where it comes like covered, where you can kind of like prepare food when they order. They prepare it.
就是已经 box cooked 已经煮好的。
Okay. It's already cooked and packaged food that's just sitting underneath the counter for sale.
Okay, nobody,
Alan, if I may?
sure.
The focus of the store is for takeout of prepared food, and it's my understanding that the neighborhood association requested that there be seating inside of the facility or the building. That's why there's the counter with the bar.
Okay, are people going to be eating food
No, not eat.
on the premise?
那你那个商店里面可以坐，我见有地方给他们坐下来吃。
No, not eat. No, not eat.
But there isn't.
Pardon me?
There isn't any.
They just
not in the
take it
store.
to go. Take it to
Okay.
go.
It's for to go only.
What other types of merchandise will you be selling other than prepared food?
除了准备吃的东西之外，还有什么其他的东西你准备吗？
就是有点像那个，就是你说差不多就跟那个 7-Eleven 差不多，就是那些零食啊，就是那些东西。
The items will be similar to 7-Eleven, so kind of like snacks and some other items.
Maybe some
food, packaged food, some alcohol.
是一个小零售店。
Kind of like snacks and basically
like a gas station.
to go, kind of like a gas station type of food.
These drawings that were submitted tonight do not have the stamp of an architect. Who drew these?
他说那个地图下来不是那个牌子，那个专门画地图的人画下来的，有吗？是吗？
是他但是还没有，他还要去那个，他只是给他临时给他一个，他只是 temporary 的。
你是准备用那个牌子去画对吧？
Yeah, because before we get is a plan for restaurant. 首先就是呢，我现在不开餐厅，以前是有一个 plan for restaurant， 现在我想改变，所以它是临时改变一下，还没有全部 figure out.
Okay. This is a temporary floor plan we draw up. It is not official, and then we have to look at it and plan more to make it a more.
就是这个样子，差不多就这个样子，差不多就是这个样子，差不多就是这样子。
It will be similar to the floor plan that's here, but it will be 你说
中间
这个
摆的东西可能会一点点变动，中间的位置，就是中间摆的位置可能有点变动吧。
你是哪里？
就是中间你摆东西的地方，你可能会有点变动，其他的不会变动。假如这硬件的东西都不会变动，这些门啊，这些东西，这些东西都不会变动。
The floor plan that you guys are looking at, the outside surrounding will be the same, but the inside or maybe the center area, it might be moved a little bit, but it will be similar.
Who drew these drawings?
Kevin Song.
Kevin Song is the person who drew it.
And who is he to you?
He always helped me draw it. You know, my 502 State Street is he draw it. And 602, he helped me many other buildings draw.
Is he a licensed architect?
Yeah, he have license.
I have nothing further.
Okay, Alder Revere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome back, Laura. So I want to follow along the recommendations of the Vilas Neighborhood Association, please. And they obviously had several concerns, and I appreciate Steve Holtzman giving us that background and the chronology of events and to explain why this application was referred here at our committee at our last meeting, to allow more time to have those neighborhood conversations. So the first question I want to ask you, and again, these plans are helpful, whether they were stamped, by a registered architect or not, but does the property that Jang owns include a parking lot? So that's what this big white space is a parking lot to the left-hand side of?
Old side here. Here's parking lot, here's parking lot.
Okay. And I know that there was some suspicion in the neighborhood when the proposal first came forward that the main attraction was perhaps to have a beer garden on University football Saturdays. Was that ever an idea that you had or Jang had, was to have a beer garden during football games, before and after football games?
It's not in the plan.
Okay.
We have the beer garden.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
They don't plan to have the beer garden.
There is no plan to have a beer garden.
Maybe they come to buy it.
The store will be open for selling liquors, but it's not in the plan to do a beer garden per se during the football games.
And you have no plans to use the parking lot for anything other than its intended purpose?
Just the full parking.
It's full parking, yeah.
Okay, very good. So you obviously come to know us from your many visits to this committee over the years with your different businesses, but just wanted to make sure that you fully understand that there's no way you could sell anything in that parking lot without requiring several additional approvals from the city government. Do you understand that? Okay. So,
Maybe here want to make one refrigerator. Maybe here make one refrigerator in the parking here a little bit. Make one refrigerator.
maybe you could speak in Mandarin and let the interpreter say, because I don't follow you.
Refrigerator 就是那个冰箱，可能会装一个小冰箱。可能冰箱稍微又装一个冰箱，有可能会在这里装一个冰箱。让给我买，上面的东西。Yeah, that's okay.
可以跟他说，我就是不明白你想
就是也许
做什么。
也许这里会装一个冰箱，就是装一个冰箱 refrigerator 冰箱。
She said the plan is to maybe possibly to have a refrigerator.
In the corner.
Or in the corner?
That's all. Maybe, but I just thinking.
And for right now, the plan is for the self-contained,
Yeah,
two that have been provided to the committee.
Yeah.
One with the prep kitchen and one without the prep.
Yeah, I just thinking, but not. We don't.
I'm talking about the parking lot.
Yeah, that's even the parking lot here. Parking
This,
lot.
you're talking about this blue box. What is that labeled?
Walking unit?
And what would that be?
Maybe this person, the refrigerator.
So Jang and you propose to build an addition to the building into the parking lot?
No. Not just like a corner here. Maybe we make one refrigerator. 冰箱 Maybe. But we need
我知道，可是他不知道为什么摆冰箱。
就是 building 一个。Oh, never mind. Just maybe he don't know. You need a restaurant. It's fine. Just 不要了。
Well,
She doesn't want to get confused, so she said, never mind.
okay, so I think you'd need city approval for that too.
Yeah,
So,
that's
okay,
right. No.
I know you don't want to confuse matters, but it is on the plan now that it's been pointed out to me. Do you plan to store alcohol in this
No.
potentially?
The alcohol is behind my cashier.
Sorry.
Not in the refrigerator she's planning.
No.
The alcohol will be behind
Behind
the
the-
counter inside.
The wine.
Excuse me a minute.
We need to
We
use
have
the
an
interpreter.
interpreter here, and I'd prefer all of the communication to go through hers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
酒是放在我的那后面。
the alcohol will be planted on the inside behind the counter.
它是那个
So-
它只是跌酒，
So
我们跌酒就是那个跌酒，你也告诉他，你看后面。
So all the wines and the beers will be behind
No,
the
not the
counter.
beer. Beer in the refrigerator outside.
你是在外面。
Beer out here. 就这个不是进来的门吗？这个门中这个 beer 是放在这个边上的。Beer 是 in the side in the refrigerator. 那个 wine 在 behind.
你说烈酒对不对？
对。
I'm sorry. So the
it's not your fault. You don't need to apologize.
The beer will be sitting on the inside on the left-hand side if you enter the front door. And then the hard liquors that requires more will be behind the counter. Does that make sense?
And storage? You don't plan any storage
don't
beyond what
have-
was just articulated?
We do have storage. 我们有啊，这里。
The storage will be in the storage what's labeled on the floor plan.
And that's where you would store alcohol, but not extending into the potential blue box?
That's a bathroom. Yeah, behind here.
It will be only within the storage area where
Okay.
it's labeled.
Again, not including the blue box, because this is a potential future expansion.
This box right here.
This is door. This is door.
Right, yeah, you're not putting alcohol right there.
No, not right there.
Okay. So this,
Yeah, just storage. Yeah, just storage. I'm not.
Just basically say only, yeah, within the storage area, not anything outside of it.
not in, not,
Not in where the blue box, where.
right, which would be something some other day that would require city approval.
他说
Right, you understand that.
放的话要申请牌子，申请那个酒牌放那边才可以。
So this goes to Attorney, my next question kind of goes to one of Attorney Allen's concerns, and that is that the application is missing a fair amount of information. And one of the key areas that we always look to is question number 10, which is a written description of the licensed premise. And the written description of the licensed premise says 2,200 square foot entire building. And then you're required with the application to file a floor plan. So we need to know tonight, if we grant this license, what is the defined license premise and what floor plan are we approving? Two were distributed tonight. Could you just reassure us or clarify on the record that you are seeking approval of one or the other floor plans? And we can mark it as such and include that in the record?
Seeking approval of both floor plans.
I'm sorry, Attorney?
They're seeking approval of both floor plans. The first one without the prep kitchen is what it's going to start out as. And the second one that shows the prep kitchen is the intended plan down the road. And my client was hoping to be able to get approval for both today so that they would not have to go back to the committee if there was a food prep kitchen installed, which would be a deviation from the first plan, which is going to start off today. So that's why we're seeking approval of both, but in the least, the very first without the food kitchen.
And again, I realize that you aren't the main attorney on this, but did your client promise the Vilas Neighborhood Association Council that she would install a future prep kitchen or kitchen? And we have a representative of VNA here. I presume you're registered, Fraser?
Did you promise that you're going to have a food kitchen?
Yeah, little one. Little.
Excuse
What,
me, if we don't want too many people talking at
Yeah.
once, so we'll be
didn't
happy
mean
to
to-
call you up. Have you registered? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's what I was just saying, is that we're going to hear from the neighborhood later tonight. So I just want to confirm that your understanding is the same as what we'll hear from the Neighborhood Association.
上一次跟那个科长那个讲话的时候，没有跟他就是说过准备那个有一个小小
Yeah, we talked.
Okay, so my question again, I'm sorry if I'm confusing you, is are you seeking to install this kitchen, or you haven't decided yet, and that's why you want us to approve two different diagrams, which is very unorthodox?
是一个 small hole， 只是一个小小的 hole。他就说这你现在就是想申请准备，现在跟他申请准备那个厨房的排队，因为这个小小的准备最后加进去。Yeah, 就是一个那种，只是一个 one small hole。
Yes, we intend to install a small kitchen down the road.
small hole， 就是一个 small hole， 它上面有个 small hole， 就是一个小小的，就是一个小小的。
Just need install a small kitchen area.
So,
hole 就是那个 hole， kitchen 不是有个 hole 吗？抽油烟机嘛，抽油烟机嘛。
With the kitchen, I would like to have install a kitchen hood, where it would blow out all the smokes when it's cooking and all that.
yes.
But under neither scenario would the area where the alcohol, the liquor would be contained is changed. That is the exact same no matter what under either plan. The only difference is whether there's a food prep kitchen, so instead of bringing food from the outside to sell, the food would be made on site. But the area which would be locked at 9 o'clock and everything like that does not change under either scenario.
Thank you, I appreciate all that. Again, my concern is that we usually don't approve two separate floor plans, number one. Number two, I wanted to know if the approval of VNA was in part contingent on the assumption that there would be a kitchen installed. And number three, I'm still concerned about this blue box in the parking lot. So if I had my druthers, I'm only one person here, I would recommend that we approve the floor plan that is a certainty, and Laura comes, visits us all the time. It's not a hardship for her to come back here, and I shouldn't, just speaking to the counselor, but to you, Laura, to come back here when you make a decision on what you might do for sure, certain with the kitchen, and again, this additional storage into the parking lot. Does that make sense?
I each month need to pay like 6,000 a month for bank. I already bought almost 1 year.
I don't follow the response. If we could use.
So, did you understand the question? I can.
You can.
So either the counselor or the interpreter would be great.
So, first question is, did we promise the Vilas Neighborhood Association that we would have a kitchen? Did they approve the plan because we said there was going to be a kitchen?
They did.
他有吗？这就是批准你准备那个厨房。Yes, I did say yes.
Yes, so you are certain you will have some sort of kitchen. Whether it has a hood system or not, you'll have a kitchen. When you open, you'll have a kitchen.
有准备，他赞成你可以，对不对？
They did.
Okay.
And then are you okay if they only approve this plan today, and if you make the floor plan kitchen later, you'd have to come back and talk to them again?
No,
So are you okay with this today?
Yeah.
And this later if we have to?
No, today I.
他说他如果今天批了这一个，然后以后你回来准备厨房的话，再回来申请有没有问题
Okay.
？Yes.
Okay. And if you do anything with this blue box, you're going to talk to them first?
Yeah.
You mean this one?
Yes, on the outside.
如果你有需要做什么要改变的话，你要先跟他先联络一下，申请那个牌子，要跟他先跟他说。Yes, in regards to the blacks, yes. So if she, intend to do anything with that, make any changes, we'll come back and talk to the council or whatever we have to do first.
So which one are you saying that you consider your licensed premise that you want us to grant this evening?
先跟我这个。
The one with the kitchen or without the kitchen?
This is without it.
This
Oh,
is,
this
no,
one
this
with.
one's without, this one has.
They wanted me today. This all right.
So you're asking them to approve this one today. There's no kitchen.
Okay.
对吗？
It's okay. Yeah, just go me today for this.
Okay. Yes, the floor plan without the kitchen first, please.
Okay, very good. I'm sorry if I make that too difficult. I think the last item on my list that hasn't already been asked and answered by colleagues relates to the 10% of revenue that seems like it's critical to the neighborhood association. So, on your application, since you're applying for a Class A license, you were not required to list percentages. So it sounds like you have the application in front of you. So if I could refer you to question number 57. So,
他就说
because you applied for a Class A, you weren't required to answer the question, but since this is obviously critical to the neighborhood association
I did
and to this conversation, if you were to anticipate percentages of your revenue, what would they be, please?
10%.
10%.
So it would be 10% alcohol, and what would the other percentages be, out of curiosity?
The food maybe 20%. I think.
Estimate about 20% for the food?
Maybe, I think. I don't know.
So we need to get to 100, so that's,
Are you,
so there's 70%.
7 with others. So
So
maybe say food at 30%. 30, then maybe it's 60% others.
If I could just help, by food, I think they mean both prepared food and, unprepared food, so.
sorry, 10% alcohol, about 30% food, include packaged or prepared food, and then 60% other stuff.
Okay. Like a regular convenience store.
个好像是这边
Almost like that.
Yes.
我们要多一点那些 food，就是也许会买一些 vegetable， 也许因为很多 Chinese 嘛，但是只是蔬菜呀这些东西，只是我记得。
It will be similar to 7-Eleven, but possibly down the road, if it's permitted, we might sell some like vegetables or fruits type of thing.
Well, that sounds great. I would encourage that.
Thank you.
So my last question on that point, or last point on this question, then I'll yield, is would you have any objection to adding a condition on your license that says that alcohol sales may be no greater than 10% of total revenue?
他是说加一个条件，就是你买酒精不能超过10%个收入，可以吗？
就是属于东西不能超过的是。
对，所以酒的东西不能超过10%。
应该差不多，应该也是。
可以吗？
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I think so. I don't know. I think so. I don't know.
I think that should be fine.
I don't know.
It's first time doing it, so
I don't know.
not sure, but
you'd agree though, that you
No.
agree that it
Yeah,
would never
agree.
go above 10%,
I
correct?
agree right now. Yeah.
Isn't that consistent
it
with
will
what
go
you
over 10%.
told the Vilas Neighborhood Association Council and what Steve Holtzman testified on your behalf? Right? So-
Yes.
So there's no objection? Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Kano Spina, then Mr. Fletcher, and then Mr. Grady.
Hi. So, I'm just gonna show you the map that I'm seeing. This doesn't have any of the blue, doesn't have the kitchen. There is a lot of retail stuff in there. It says retail space. In the side that is below the bedrooms, a lot of retail space. I understand that you are going to sell prepared food that you had made in your restaurant and you're gonna take to here. Are you putting some of that prepared food there? Are you putting it in coolers? How is that? Or is this like chips and soda and, plantains and, like vegetables and stuff like that? Like, because the 10% is very important. If this has beer in here, if this has other stuff in there, you're gonna be selling more than 10% in alcohol. So that's the part that I'm more concerned. My understanding is that this part over here that says store and it says ADA height counter with locking metal security gate, that's the part that you're only gonna have alcohol in there? Is that my understanding? Am I reading this correctly?
That's only wine. That's like wine in the behind.
Oh, could you talk to the interpreter, please?
烈酒，就是比较浓度比较高的。
Okay. The alcohol that's behind the gated, it's only, the hard liquor stuff that you can't be selling. The beer and wine, the beer stuff, it will be putting outside the gated area.
Outside
in the refrigerator.
in this open area?
Refrigerator.
I just want to
跟
make
他
sure
说
that-，
他说那个
Yeah,
烈
here.
酒这里
I
哪里
think, okay.
Right here in front you're gonna be selling beer, beer and other,
Maybe.
and then inside that little box
Yeah.
by the bathrooms
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the hard liquor.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So that's the, sorry. That's the part that I am concerned with you being able to keep it below 10%. Because it sounds to me
觉得你可不可以就是买那个酒精
that
抽个
a lot of your space will be selling alcohol and not necessarily, like, I don't see, is there a place here for coolers for the prepared food that you're bringing from another store? From the restaurant?
有没有冰箱？就是把专门放那个准备好的菜。
这些是refrigerator，这些也是 refrigerator，这些边上都是 refrigerator。
The red marks on the corner is mostly red. Those will be partial or will be a refrigerated area where the food will be put it in, stored in.
Some，有的不要，有的要放冰箱，有的不要，就是按照
The
卫生局
prepared
的
food stuff.
Like in a
That needs to
little-
be refrigerated.
Like in a to-go little box and you can just
外卖盒。
eat it at home?
Yes.
Salmon 不要放到 refrigerator，有一些。
Like sushi and things like that?
Yeah, food that required to refrigerate it will be in the refrigerated area. So, but not all the food will be in the refrigerator, obviously.
Okay.
按照卫生局的规定嘛，有的时间只超过这个时候。
Whatever is required by the health department that needs to be in the refrigerator will be in the refrigerator.
And that's the most of your sales, or what is the most of your sales? What do you want to sell in this place?
他说：“你觉得你卖最多的东西应该是什么
Hard to say，就是现在你说现在的 business，I don't know how to but sell Chinese food most Chinese more Chinese food a bit more。
At this time, I feel it's mostly likely to be food items. Maybe it's gonna mostly Chinese food,
So-
the prepared stuff.
So you're gonna import, like there is, like I'm thinking of a Latino's grocery store that is in the north side that has imported stuff, chips and salsa and plantains, like I said 3 times already, things like that you cannot buy in a regular grocery store. And then it has a little bit of food that they prepare in there and then you can take home. Is that what you're trying to do?
他就是
Sorry, that was a
说
lot.
你是不是应该就是好像就是中高的商品，就是有一些是准备好的菜，那另外就是中国的东西，就是专门卖出去的，对不对？
有一些你看那个我煮熟的有点像那个冰豆 box，有点像那个煮熟的东西，有点像冰豆 box 那些。
还其他的呢？
都会有，就是看怎么样去，会随着东西去变了。你开始是准备这样的，也许你们的food看着客人的需求会慢慢有点改变。
It'll be kind of similar to what you said, but the type of food or the packaged food will be based on kind of the demands. It will be kind of like maybe packing some bento box style type of lunch boxes or to-go boxes for sales.
但是你要看生意是要看的情况，你也许会有一些改变了。
It will probably be adjusted down the road, depends on the demands of the student or the clients or customers, you know, what they're looking for or type of service, the type of food they're looking for. So it might change.
Little bit or something.
Okay. Okay. And you are, we're good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Fletcher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Laura. I think Alder Verveer covered my question around the 10% alcohol revenue and kind of just making sure that was in alignment with your expectations going forward. My questions relate to the management and the employees who are going to be working at the establishment. Question 29 describes your management experience. My first question, question 30 then asks you to list the name of the managers who will be involved with the establishment. Will you be involved with the day-to-day management of the establishment?
他就是问你，你会不会就是每天做经理，就是管理每天都在那边？
那 every day 是每一天都会去嘛，去了不是我每天都会去，但是不会说12 hours 10 hours 在那里，都每天都会去。
I will be managing it, and I will be stopping by managing it daily.
But will you be the ongoing kind of manager? How many staff in total will there be?
但是我不会一天10个小时，我只会是去，可能会去一下1个小时或者2个小时，每一天这样子。
他问你问题就是说，你是不是长期的管理经理？ I will be the ongoing manager, and I will be there at least a couple of hours every day managing the business.
And how many other staff members will there be?
其他的工人会有几个？
差不多4个，只有4个就。
It will be approximately about 4 employees there.
And what training will you be providing for your employees in terms of alcohol sales, given that particular location?
管理就是教他们就是卖酒精的东西。
都要买那个酒都要看那个 license 有没有超过21岁。
你会管理他们，对不对？对。I will train each employee, make sure they be aware and understand how the alcohol should be sold.
Check ID have 21-year-old.
For example, checking the IDs when they sell the liquors to the customers.
He's 21-year-old.
And at least 21 years old.
Okay. When is your convenience store, when is it opening exactly? Number 7 is also blank on your application.
他说你那3天准备什么时候开？
可能要你的那个差不多3个月吧，有那个要装修要2、3个月，2个月左右吧。
I would estimate probably between 2 to 3 months for remodel and get it ready.
Laura, I just want to go back to this issue with the floor plan as well, with the walk-in unit in the parking lot. And I think you stated it, but could you just restate for the record, what exactly is the walk-in unit going to be used for?
他说走进去的冰箱，你想放什么东西在里面？你说什么？那个冰箱啊，冰箱可以那个冰箱可以走进去的吗？
就是放冰的，那边是只是放冰的，只是冰的，在里面还有那个白酒一个那个白酒跟那个啤酒应该放冰箱。
The walk-in unit will be stored alcohol like the beer, white wine, and. 我说白酒。
So eventually, over time, your intention, if you build that particular extension, if you get the appropriate planning approval from the city, is indeed to store alcohol there instead of just in the kind of gated counter that you've indicated earlier.
You're talking about the blue box?
Yeah.
哪个 blue box？
他说，如果你以后准备就是起这个是摆那个啤酒跟那个白酒，对不对吗？
No. Just now I remember. Yeah, that's what I talked about before. Just refrigerated for food. For food and refrigerated.
Okay, it's not intended to store alcohols. It's intended for packaged food or for food.
Walk-in room.
A walk-in refrigerator.
It's a walk-in refrigerator for food and not for alcohol.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's why I began to talk about here. 就是我开始不是试着跟他讲嘛，就是这个意思。
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Mr. Grady, and then and we've got a queue full here, and then Alder Skidmore. So, Mr. Grady.
Yeah, I have concerns about your application. It's not properly filled out. It's not notarized. The drawings of the establishment are not done by an architect. I haven't seen any building permits that you've obtained. I think the last time we dealt with you, there was a real difficult question of dealing with the building permits. And I'm not comfortable with this. I'm very confused about what exactly you're doing. And I can't approve this personally tonight. I really can't.
不喜欢特别批准，因为你上一次
Mr. Donnelly?
I move the previous question.
Okay. Second?
That's a motion to, actually, we don't even have an item that we're debating right now. No one has made a motion.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, we have other registrants.
Okay. I'm concerned that we're spending a great deal of time on this item, and I can't see any way that we can vote on this tonight.
I don't disagree with you. So perhaps, perhaps what we could do is if we agree we have no further questions for the applicant, we could bring up the other registered speaker who is here, and we could hear that person, and then the committee can figure out what it would like to do. Okay.
I'll agree. I will agree because there's no way we can vote on this. This is an incomplete application, so
Okay, what we'll do then is, we have no further questions for you right now. We have another speaker, so we'll bring the speaker up, and then the committee will have a discussion about what it would like to do next, okay?
让其他人先讲，讲完之后有什么问题的话再跟我说。
Thank you. So you could just have a seat, and then I'd like to ask Fraser Gerd. So if you could introduce yourself for the folks watching on TV and give us your comments.
Sure. Excuse me. My name is Fraser Gerd. I live at 1526 Jefferson Street, which is 5 houses up from this location. One housekeeping matter, because of the architecture of this building, the allowed and prescribed place to put the sign so neighbors know about this is put in a location where almost nobody can see it. There's a shelter in front of the front window, and so for, staff or whatever, if you have options for secondary signs, because nobody going on Jefferson Street would have ever seen that sign. There was a stakeholder meeting I told. I don't think any nearby residents were deemed to be stakeholders, but Vilas Neighborhood Association, I'm not representing Vilas Neighborhood Association. I was at the meeting a month ago. I was for 18 or 19 years the chair of the zoning committee. I've spoken here many times. I have been in favor of things. I have suggested changes, and I've been against some things. And we always tried to show up so that we weren't just screaming when we didn't like something. Vilas Neighborhood Association, the stakeholders' notes, the first copy that I got a hold of said 25-75 mix. The one that was handed out with the same date on it, the January date, was a 10%, 90% mix. And we asked Ron Trachtenberg if that was real, if they would stipulate to that. And he said yes, because I and a number of people on the council and past officers were concerned about that. Now, that brings up one of the main things, and I asked Ron some questions like, so does something come from a different store, or what? How do we know that the 10%, if the stuff is getting rung up the right way so that we have a good count on the 10%? I think it's very likely that they're going to go over 10% just because it's sort of an attractive nuisance. It's people are going to go there. at 8:45 at night and buy alcohol. We spoke against, well, Neighborhood Association years ago had a resolution presented here, presented to Common Council that said, I'm sorry.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. So, get an extra minute.
Sorry. We had this, I've forgotten it now, but it was a resolution that not have additional liquor licenses on Regent Street. But reality being reality, things come in the door. And this one, as long as it looked more like food and things like that, a lot of people in the Vilas Neighborhood Association thought that that would be a good thing. I can speak to the seating thing if that's unmanageable. The Neighborhood Association, we're just thinking that it would be kind of nice, like New Orleans Takeout or Gino's out on Verona Road, or a couple little tables, sit down, eat whatever. But Ron Trachtenberg said that that's problematic if somebody unscrews a lid on something and starts drinking alcohol. I think management issues are going to be difficult.
Okay, another minute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Sorry, once again. I think management issues are going to be difficult, partly day to day. And I don't know how you folks enforce 10% things. I think they may feel that they're victimized by success and at 35% or 40%, and now we've got another liquor store. I think that it may be a very big problem during football game days, simply to handle their own control over their own property. There is a lot of pressure feet away from this location. The parking lot, it's 4 or 5 cars. Once you have the first one in there, all the rest can come in, but they have to back out. It's a lot like Regent Liquor, where it's not too safe, but that's the way that is. Thank you.
Excuse me just a minute. We have a question. Mr. Fletcher.
Bridget, is your, you mentioned kind of management issues and management concerns. It's predominantly around like inventory control. Would you say, according to your last statements?
Well, I don't know how you folks enforce it, but my questions of Ron Trachtenberg were, somebody rings up what they put it down as something or other, and so I'd like it to be, scanned or something, so that it would be less of a problem that way. And then I think it's not a particularly small structure, so there's enough room to do all the things that they want to do in it. But I think that you have to have enough people there, because there's going to be more pressure than at the 7-Eleven, which in busy times really needs about 3 employees there. Busy times meaning 5 minutes to 9 at night.
In the meeting minutes supplied to the committee from the VNA council meeting, the minutes really do get into and kind of I think the context, at least from my perspective on the conversation, some of the issues around the 502 State Street property and the building permit issue that Mr. Grady raised appropriately earlier on. It got raised apparently at the VNA council meeting, but it wasn't a big concern. Is that what I'm reading?
I think probably that's a matter of note-taking. My recollection was when Ron Trachtenberg was introducing the applicant and saying that there was a lot of experience here and things like that, that he talked about the defined premise on State Street, and that not matching what the actual use was. And so I think those parts of the of the minutes that, that the alder forwarded to the committee related to the discussion about State Street, and they weren't about this location. There weren't discussions about that. That people are happy that food and there's a high concentration of folks that like this kind of food there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, we have one more
Just
question.
a quick
Alder
question,
Stewart.
please. Very early on, you said something about a sign in the front window. Was that for the sign for this hearing, or was that
The sign for the hearing, saying the first date for this and the first possible common council date and everything else.
Okay, to clarify, does that mean that that might not have been placed just because of, or because the way it was placed, there may not have been more people at the meetings? Not following.
The only reason I saw the sign there was that I knew there had to be a sign. It was put in the front window. There's kind of a breezeway vestibule entryway that was put on when the hair people built onto it after it had been Zim's car repair place. And so that there may be situations where even though one sign is required, may be real helpful if there's kind of an outrigger kind of situation, because 4 or 5 people might have seen that. You wouldn't, if you were driving by, you wouldn't, it would have gone in a flash. If you're on, I walked down the sidewalk of Regent Street, and I knew where to look, but there's only about 15 feet of pavement where you look in there and you're going to see the orange sign. So that's what I was referring to. I know there was, normally when I see this one or some other ones in normal restaurants or the one that's in the Brokaw window now, it's readily seen. This is just a goofy situation, not anybody's fault, but I don't think public notice in that respect was really effective.
Okay, we have two, you have a question of the speaker? Assistant City Attorney Allen.
I just want to clarify so the record's clear. You're talking about the orange sign that notifies people of this hearing tonight?
Yes, sir.
And were there other windows in that building that placement of the sign would have been more visible to the public?
On the Jefferson Street side, there are a number of sort of picture windows, and anybody would have instantly seen it, as long, you know, because they have Venetian blinds, but if you put it on the window, you would have seen orange right away. More difficult on the Regent Street side because the other windows available are really higher up, may have held the sign, but may have been a problem with how high it was relative to somebody walking up to it.
Is it your opinion that this would, where it was placed, was one of the least visible windows to place that sign in?
It's a Regent Street address, and it was in the front window facing Regent Street. So I think that it met the letter of the requirement, but the intent is to inform people, and this is a highly unusual architectural situation. You probably might never see it again, I don't know.
Mr. Donnelly, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I want to make a motion.
Okay, thank you. You've got the floor.
All right, so I move that we refer this to the next regularly scheduled ALRC meeting.
Second.
And I would implore the applicant to get the application completely filled out. And if it is not ready, to request that we refer it another month so that we'll actually be ready to discuss this. In particular, item 10, which is the description of the licensed premises, should be filled out and ideally limit that premises to the areas where alcohol will actually be sold or stored. It would also be good to be ready to answer how you'll be able to confirm the percent of sales from alcohol. Item 30 should have the names of managers, not just the number of them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Assistant City Attorney Zilloway.
She should also come with a lease for the property.
Okay, and Alder Skidmore.
Thank you. What I was going to speak to is if she could also bring an actual plan prepared by a licensed professional that clearly depicts the layout, the uses, the coolers, and hopefully prepared by somebody who could use it to obtain an actual building permit. It's not just a sketch.
Mr. Fletcher.
Mr. Chair, I think I appreciate Mr. Donnelly's referral motion. I am inclined to vote against the motion because I do not see myself supporting this in a month, and here is why. I do believe that, you know, the applicant has another property, and when we're talking about the licensed premise and the amount of questions that there were regarding the floor plan, we have had extended conversations with the applicant, and there's a history of this committee talking with the applicant about building permit-related issues. And to me, when we talk about the you know, kind of getting a paperwork in order before the committee as a core component of being able to, you know, as a good indication of good faith of an ability to serve in a capacity for the business. I have deep concerns with the application, its lack of really completion as a whole on some fundamental items, as members of this committee have specified, that in principle, referral does give the applicant a chance to kind of remedy. I just remain very concerned that, you know, we have to have this conversation after extended conversations that we've had about 502 State Street, that now, yet again, we are kind of in the same boat. So, Mr. Chair, I will be voting against the motion for that reason, that I do have serious reservations with the underlying application. Thank you.
Mr. Kano Espina, then Assistant City Attorney Allen.
Mr. Chairman, I also will be voting against the motion. I believe that a 10% alcohol limit is something that this particular business may not be able to do. It was clear to me today that this particular business owner really doesn't know what they're going to be selling, how they're going to be selling it, what stuff they're going to be selling it. I don't want to set somebody to fail and then having to have litigations and having to, you know, take away points and do all this stuff. If the community says that they only want 10%, and we want to put that in a stipulation in the license, it just makes me feel that we're setting somebody to fail. So I will be voting no to this. Thank you.
Assistant City Attorney Allen, then Alder Revere.
Thank you. You know, you pay me good money to give you legal advice, and most of the time I hang back and wait for the questions. This time I'm going to jump in here and say that I don't think this is soup yet. There are a lot of problems here that would set a very bad precedent for this committee if it acted on this application as it exists. First of all, it's an incomplete application, woefully incomplete in my opinion, and if you want to see more and more of these, act on this one tonight, because people, you give them an inch, they'll take a yard. I gotta quit using metaphors here. But Also, to use one more, because that's a lot of what law school's about, learning to handle your metaphors. The percentage restriction on a Class A license is really a Pandora's box, especially if you're simply deferring to what the neighborhood, which for the most part is just throwing a dart and picking a number, provides to the ALRC. The problem is a very high-end Class A store might sell a couple of bottles of scotch, and they're easily over 10% of their other sales. But they do not present the problem that a store selling other sundries, but selling a ton of low-cost alcohol represents to a neighborhood. So it gets very difficult. It's not the same equation as where you have a restaurant where the primary sales are either food or alcohol, and where there's already a pre-existing state definition of the term restaurant, which we developed ours from. So you would also have sort of an ad hoc assignment of these percentages, and would it really be fair to the different operators just to throw a number at a dartboard or throw a dart at a dartboard and pick a number? It wouldn't be. I'm concerned about the placement of the sign. If you really want people to know what you're doing and show up and have an opinion heard by this body, you place the sign in the most visible location if you're wanting to comply with the law. This application was not notarized, which means there's no prosecution if there's an intentionally false statement in this application. We don't know the exact business partnership at issue here. There's no lease. There is really no floor plan. There's a drawing done, but it's the reason why we want it certified by an architect and to have their stamp on it is that's a statement from a professional that what they have submitted is true and accurate. This is, as the applicant said, a drawing and nothing more. I'm also concerned about most Class A stores come in here. If you remember Walmart, they specified exactly which aisles they were licensing, not their entire premises. So if we start opening another Pandora's box of allowing entire premises when they're, and we did this with the Stop and Goes and the 7-Elevens, to license that whole premise, we can go in there next week and every single aisle may be alcohol, instead of just the two that the applicant said, I'm going to do these and these. So I don't think this is soup yet, as I said earlier. I'm disappointed that the applicant was represented by counsel, and this is a low quality of application we received. I'm not going to weigh in on whether I think it should be denied at this point or referred. I will only say from a legal standpoint, I think you risk saying the bar so low it may be meaningless to have people come before this body with this type of proposal.
Alder Revere.
Thank you. Well, that's a hard act to follow. I decided to give my thoughts on the vote that I'll make on the motion to refer, since so many of my other colleagues did as well, and I take a bit of a different approach to this. I will support the motion to refer to our next meeting, primarily for two reasons. One, because I do believe that we deserve to give the applicant a right to have the opportunity to cure the defects in her application. And secondarily, her counsel of record, her attorney of record, is in an emergency room right now. It's been testified. And so I think it would be unfortunate if we denied the application tonight, given those reasons. So again, I support referral, and I have a feeling that if referral does prevail, we will have a unfortunate another lengthy conversation next month, but so be it. The last thing I'll say in terms of advice, and I don't disagree with any of the advice that's already been given to the applicant in terms of ways to improve the application, but I would encourage that one way to cure the potential defect in the signage requirement is to move the sign to a more prominent location and update the dates of the public hearings on the signage if referral does prevail tonight, so that the accurate dates are on the signage and it's, again, in a prominent location. Thank you.
Mr. Grady.
I request that we have a roll call vote on this.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to refer this item to our next agenda, and we have a motion and a second for that. We've all had an opportunity, or I haven't, but you have had an opportunity to identify where you think the deficiency is in the application, and I'm assuming Mr. Suing has been taking copious notes about that. So that's the motion before us, and if it passes, we will see this potentially on the agenda for our next meeting. The applicant obviously has the opportunity to decide not to do that if they're not ready. So with that, let's call the roll.
Conospino?
No.
Donnelly?
Aye.
Fletcher?
No.
Grady?
No.
Skidmore?
Aye.
Revere?
Aye.
Landgraf? 3-3.
What's your?
3-3.
3-3. I'll vote aye for referral to the next meeting.
Okay, it passes.
I would indicate that regardless of which way the committee members voted, I think you got a pretty clear view that the history with this applicant and what we went through this evening is not acceptable. And if you're going to do anything at the next meeting, please make sure we don't have a repeat of what we had this evening. Thank you. Okay, that takes us then back to the first item on the agenda, or no, the fourth item on the agenda, which is temporary Class B retailer license for G-Safe, Inc.
Number 5 is the same group.
All right, number 5 is the same group, so if you don't mind, we'll let them speak to both. So Dino, did I get it right? Dino? So why don't you introduce yourself and tell
I'm
us
Dino
what you have in mind.
Moniaci, the owner of Woofs, and representing Woofs and G-Safe for our 10th annual King Street Pride Block Party and our second annual Oktoberfest event. And I apologize if I was supposed to be here last month's meeting, but I didn't get that memo. So here I am. Answer any questions you have.
Assistant City Attorney Zilvey.
I don't have a question. It's just that the application needs to be signed by one of the officers from G-Safe.
Okay, was one of them signed and one wasn't, or?
Neither one of them was signed by an officer.
Okay, I think I might have I think I emailed you the wrong copy then. Oh, she's an officer.
She's not listed as an officer.
Okay, I can bring that to her attention and have that signed and back to you tomorrow.
That was my only issue, that
Assistant City Attorney Allen.
You said Ally's an officer?
I believe so.
All right, I'm gonna leave it at that. If it said you knew what her office was in the organization, I would have suggested we amend the application, but now we're gonna have to have confirmation of that.
Do you want me to text her? She is out campaigning tonight for her school board run, and that's why she can't be here. Okay, I will get an officer to sign it.
Mr. Kano Spina.
It says at the bottom that she's co-chair. I know she's not listed on top, but at the bottom it says that she's co-chair, so she needs to put her name on top. Is that what we're asking?
Assistant City Attorney Allen, then Assistant City Attorney Zilvey.
Yeah, I don't know. If you look at the other officers, it's president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary above. Co-chair could be co-chair of the committee running the event, which would not be an officer of the corporation. So I think it's best that we have the officer, one of the officers, as Assistant City Attorney Sylvie suggested, signed before this reaches the Common Council.
Okay.
Further questions of the applicant?
Move to approve with the understanding that the officer will sign before the next common council meeting.
Okay, motion and a second. Is your motion for 4 and 5, Mr. Kane? Okay. So a motion to approve 4 and 5, and I believe we have a second for that. And just so you understand, this is moving through to go to the council. It'll get pulled if the proper signatures aren't in the right place before the council meeting.
I understand.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to 6, temporary Class B retailer license and street use permit for Madison Festivals, Inc. We have no one registered? What is the committee's? Well, since we have no one here to answer any questions, and we may have some, Chair would certainly entertain a motion to refer this.
I would just be consistent with kind of how we handled the 2 prior applications from last month with 4 and 5, where we voted to refer because the applicant wasn't here. I would suggest that we refer item 6.
Motion and a second to refer item 6 to our next meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 7, temporary Class B retailer, concurrent use permit for Madison Central Business Improvement District. No registrants?
Did you say referral? Oh, yeah. Second.
Motion and a second to refer item number 7 to our next meeting. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Mr. Chair, quick question. Will the city clerk be following up with these? Thank you very much.
Item 8, temporary Class B retailer license for concurrent with a street use permit, Back Porch Radio Broadcasting, Inc. Registrants? None?
WRT? This is the WRT party? Referral?
Second.
Motion and a second, referral, I'm presuming, to our next meeting. Mr. Canis-Pena, to the next meeting?
Sorry.
Yeah.
You want to refer this to the next
To
meeting?
the next meeting,
Yep.
yes, sir.
Got it,
Yes.
okay. Motion and a second to refer to the next meeting. All those in favor, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, item 10. We do have a registrant for item 10. Business name change, Field Table LLC, currently doing business as Field Table. We have Patricia Davis. Patricia? Oh, I'm sorry. Available, here I said we had someone available to answer questions if there are any, and she's in support. So we technically don't have anyone. Are you associated with the organization?
She's the owner.
She's the owner, okay. Right there. I'd hate to see you referred if you're here and you're willing to
Yeah,
speak.
no, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell the committee what you have in mind?
Absolutely. So we have a 3-year history as a farm-to-table format only. And we had some flooding this fall in November, so we did some repairs. And during that time, decided to rebrand and do some restructuring of the kitchen staff skills to where there's a more technical approach to the food, I would say. And thus the new name sort of suggests that. The hours of operation for food are increasing, so I don't anticipate any changes in my percentages or anything. But we are definitely moving forward with longer casual food menu in the afternoons in particular. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, well, you have 3 questions. Alder Revere.
Hi, Trish.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Am I correct in my understanding, I heard this from Atticus Peterson, so I don't know if it's accurate, I presume it is, but that the reason why I mentioned that to him that you do need to file a change of name, when he told me he was excited about working with you.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that you did that, obviously.
Of course.
He told me that there were no physical changes to the interior premise. You were here, obviously,
some
for the
cosmetic changes.
painful discussion we had about floor plans.
Correct.
Is the bar or your alcohol service or storage areas changing at all?
I have moved one previous grab-and-go cooler further back into the bakery outside my office so that it can be more closely monitored. That's it. It's actually further from the retail front of the establishment.
And that's the only change?
Yeah.
Is there alcohol in that cooler?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's lockable. Has to be locked every night.
Okay, I don't know, maybe I'd ask legal counsel if that change would warrant a future change of license premise application or not, considering it's minor.
The flood damaged the housing around it,
I
so
see.
it was no longer looking right in that position, so we just repaired that area and put it where it's still technically visible to the public in the bakery. But, you know, right now, it's just always locked.
Okay, so if I could yield, Mr. Chair, to Attorney Allen, do you consider that to warrant an application or no?
And
It's one
I,
cooler.
to quote my boss, I don't know.
Not, it depends.
Yeah, well, we went to law school at different times. We paid for different phrases. What I need, though, to answer that question is additional information from you. You said it's grab-and-go cooler. To me, that's like
It was formerly used as a grab-and-go cooler, and
Okay.
right now, it's just locked inventory beer storage.
Okay. I'm trying to get my hands around what is a grab-and-go cooler, because we may have 2 different definitions. Mine would be a small igloo cooler that I can grab
Sure.
and jump on my boat and go.
Right. No, I can describe it for you.
All right, that'd be great.
And it is, and you might even be able to see it online in some older pictures too that are still on the website, but it's glass doors, so you can see what's inside, and it's about my height, and it's 2 doors wide. So,
So it's like a refrigerator,
Yes,
just
that you can
with
see
glass
inside,
doors on
right,
it.
right.
Yeah,
And
that's.
storage only.
correct.
Storage.
Right now, it's just storage only. Mhm.
Movement
Storage.
of that item would not cause or trigger a responsibility to apply for a change in the license premise.
Very good. Thank you, Attorney Allen. And thank you, Trish, and good luck. I'll be there tomorrow for the Downtowners event.
Excellent.
Look
See you
forward
then.
to seeing you then.
Okay, Mr. Donnelly, and then I believe Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Oh, no, I've got a question for you.
I do have another question.
Okay, so in the original field table application,
Yes.
you described the business as restaurant and market with all-day emporium featuring produce, grab-and-go meals, local products, third-wave coffee bar, bakery and cheese counter, contemporary artisanal American plates, seasonal fresh cocktails, and natural wines. Is that still an accurate description of your current concept?
It's a little bit less. I still have the bakery and the bakery grab-and-go for like farmers market Saturdays, which are a big part of our business. I took the produce cooler out. The emphasis is on sit-down meals and longer hours for those meals.
Gotcha.
Instead of maintaining a kitchen staff that's trying to do 2, 3 different menus, if you will.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
proving to be difficult in the city's labor market right now.
Gotcha.
Yes.
All right. And my other questions were already answered, so thank you.
Mr. Fletcher.
I would move approval.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the application. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Item number 12, entity reorganization for Select Hotels LLC doing, oh, that was, you're right. I wrote consent agenda and then ignored it. Okay, 15, change of license conditions for Red Sushi 2 LLC doing business as Red. We have
Don't have any.
no registrants. Mr. Fletcher.
I moved to, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
My microphone was turned on too.
I was going to say, yeah, dueling
fight over who's
microphones.
gonna second
It's like
that?
yeah, it's a less entertaining dueling piano bar. Could we please refer this unless anyone has any updated information, which we might? Okay.
Yeah, I moved to place on file at the request of the applicant.
Second. Okay.
And the very short version is, as Vice Chair Donnelly knows, because he generously attended the neighborhood meeting that I had discussed at last month's ALRC meeting, the applicant, right prior to that neighborhood meeting, did decide to hold off on any plans for amplified music on the patio, at least for another year. So we had a good discussion. Again, Mr. Donnelly was there and can attest to this. We had a good discussion. Many neighbors were at the meeting, but nobody is here tonight, as you can see, because it was announced at that neighborhood meeting that this would be referred indefinitely, perhaps permanently, but certainly should be placed on file tonight.
Okay. So, and that was your motion?
That was my motion to place on
Okay, and
file.
you're seconded. Okay, got it. Mr. Donnelly, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know she's not here, but I want to commend the applicant, because even though she intended to withdraw the application, she still went to the neighborhood meeting so she could engage with the neighbors and hear their concerns and establish that relationship with them. And something we've seen time and time again is that when license holders talk to the neighbors and have a relationship with them, things go more smoothly. So I think it's great that she did that, and that's something we'll probably take into account later if she's back here for something else.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 16, 18 plus, Center for Visual and Performing Arts license for Prism Madison, and it looks like we have 18 as well, so we have a number of applicants here, so.
That's the owner.
That's the owner, okay, well, so we'll take, is it Rico? Rico? Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure.
And tell the committee what you've got in mind.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rico Sabatini, the current owner of Prism Madison LLC. I was here last month. For those of you that weren't here, I did a DBA change, a change of corporate control, and a change of liquor agent for Gredisman Investments. I took over Plan B shortly after the first of the year and rebranded to Prism as of March 1st. So I'm here to apply for a new liquor license under a new LLC, which wasn't initially intended, but after sifting through what was left of Plan B, I discovered that it was not financially viable. So, so far since the rebranding, it's been going really well. I had a meeting on March 12th with the neighborhood. We had probably 20 or 25 people there, close to that. And it was actually refreshing since the first time I had to do that 10 years ago. So there were some noise issues initially with Plan B, and some of the same neighbors that we found a collaborative solution to those problems showed up and were supportive of the new application. So I'm excited to be back in the market, or in the Willie Street neighborhood, and I'm excited for Fruit Fest and Willie Street Fair, and to really be a part of the neighborhood again. And it seems like that is a consensus with most of the people that I talk to. One thing I've learned being in this business is that you're never going to please everybody. So there still will be a few people in the neighborhood that no matter what I do just aren't going to be happy that I'm there. But I've done everything that I can to try to appease those people. Working with the different city agencies, it's been pretty smooth with zoning and plan commission. We got things worked out, so I just want it to be noted that my initial application was 350 persons, and I'm reducing that down to 296 per Matt Tucker with plan commission, which would be administrative approval for plan commission, so I don't, for the parking reduction. Other than that, I guess if you guys have questions, I can answer them as they come. Thank you.
We do have a question from Mr. Fletcher.
Mr. Sabatini, I just have maybe two questions. I think last month you talked about improvements to the facility that you might be thinking of, and I think they were indicated maybe on your floor plan as maybe one of them. Do you want to just reiterate those for the committee?
Sure. So it was mainly maintenance items. So painting, coolers, the bathrooms had some remodels done to them as far as the stalls that were there. There was a sidebar that was not initially on the Plan B application that was added when I wasn't there, that I added to indicate that that is part of the premise now.
Do you have any changes in security for the establishment based on how Plan B was running to how Prism is running now? Or, changes in security or not?
My security plan is very similar to when I was there, so it's typically one security person per 50 people that are there. So usually on Fridays and Saturdays, I'll have 5 or 6 security running.
And I think my last question, and it really comes down to like noise, so that I think the committee received a note during the meeting from, that was Alder Rummel forwarded along, and that is from Stephen Tracy Gallo. Do you know?
I'm familiar with him.
The perspective on noise and particularly concerns around bass, is it your intention to kind of continue to be responsive to concerns of neighbors and those in the surrounding area regarding that? What's your kind of plan of action there? Because I'm sure this probably came up in your community meeting, or didn't it?
It did.
Okay.
It was a little surprising to me that it hadn't come up prior to the community meeting, that all of a sudden it was an issue, even though they've claimed that it had been going on for a number of years and they just didn't say anything. But I am willing to, of course, keep an open line of communication with Stephen Tracy specifically. And then, I have a pretty good relationship with some of the members on the Marquette Neighborhood Association. So if there are any issues that come up, definitely we'll have an open line of communication and work to resolve those.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions of the applicant? Mr. Grady?
Yeah, I noticed one party mentioned that the smoking area, they thought it should be smaller and in back of the building. Is that where it is, or where is the smoking area?
Yeah, it currently is in the back of the building and it is enclosed per the request.
Oh, it is. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. That's all I
Okay.
wanted to know. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Kano Spina?
I don't know if you had the opportunity to see some of the conditions that were talked about, so I'm gonna give them to you.
Okay.
And then you can. And I think there are 5. Are that there?
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, okay. Humor, all right.
A little dry in here. Yes, actually all of these, except for the number 3, the capacity was 296, not 295. And then the...
96?
Yeah, correct. And then the provide enclosed outdoor smoking area. I guess enclosed, I want a definition of that. Can it say keep what's currently there? Because that is an enclosure, but it's not, doesn't have a roof over it or anything like that.
No, come on. Okay.
But everything else looks...
A roof.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Fletcher? Did you have a question?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think all the...
Alder Revere, did you have a
Oh,
question?
thank you. I didn't know it was my turn already. Yeah, so a couple of follow-up questions, Rico, just so we can make sure that the conditions are all clean on the license. So I'll just go, did you return the list?
I did.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go through the list. So Alderperson Rummel suggests, and I have before, I have 2 pages of conditions over the history of the former Plan B and how we've modified them, going back all the many visits that you and your previous partner had, and appearances before our committee. Anyway, so Alderperson Rummel makes the point that in your current applications for PRISM, you don't have a security plan attached, so she suggests that the first condition should be worded such that you quote, "must file current security plan." There was an old condition on the license that says must abide by security plan, and she's modified that because she doesn't believe that you have a current security plan. What would you say the current condition of the security plan is? Have you reviewed it recently? Is it something that is pretty much identical to what was previously filed with the city?
It's almost identical, yeah. Yeah, it pretty much is identical.
Like
So it's from the
maybe
former.
changing the name Plan B
Right.
to PRISM, is that probably it? Or?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So the former, whatever was filed with the previous application would be the same thing.
Okay. So would you mind, changing on your, I don't know if it's all on your computer or not, but anyway, getting a copy and
Sure.
and reviewing it for us? And I think similar to, what we often do here, which is just like we did with Wolf's outdoor events, that they, make a minor tweak prior to the common council meeting. The common council meeting, as you probably know where this is going, is April 16th.
Sure.
So there's time to get that updated to the city clerk's office. So anyway, and then parking lot to be patrolled every 30 minutes, food service until 1 a.m., capacity of 296 persons. Those have already been kind of asked and answered. I had a question about Fruit Fest and the Willie Street Fair, which is number 4 on the list.
Mm-hmm.
The way this is where it talks about parking lots, plural, east and north, is that the Warren property too then?
For Fruit Fest, we used to have part of the stage that would go in over the lot line into his parking lot. So I would assume that it's talking about the one that's directly adjacent that PRISM patrons park in, and then the Warren's parking lot behind us.
So the one that is on your part of your parcel, your parking lot, and then the Warren one is the one that's the other one mentioned here.
Correct.
Do you foresee that? I just want to make sure that these current conditions are current and relevant. Do you foresee that Fruit Fest and/or Willie Street Fair would continue to have your alcohol consumed on that parking lot? So we should keep that in?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And then as it relates to the smoking area issue, I just wanted to take a moment and yield to Attorney Allen again for his counsel. Does a condition relating to the smoking area fall under Assistant City Attorney Marcy Paulson's advice that we shouldn't have any conditions relating to smoking, given the state statute that preempts municipalities from any outdoor smoking conditions or regulations? Or
I would want to run that by her, but that's my understanding of her advice the last time I heard her speak on the subject.
Yeah, and I recall she actually had written advice to us that you shared with our committee maybe 2 years ago too. There was something in writing.
If you're asking me about what I shared with this committee 2 years ago.
Well, anyway, what I'm saying.
I have kids,
Okay, so reclaiming my time, just kidding. I just want to remind my colleagues that the legal advice that we've had from the city attorney's office is that we shouldn't have any conditions relating to smoking one way or the other. So I don't think we should include any language, given the state statute preemption, relating to smoking or smoking area or anything like that. Am I missing any conditions, Rico, that were discussed at the neighborhood meeting, or you've had offline conversations with Alderperson Rummel or Marquette Neighborhood Association representatives, or does this pretty much cover? I mean, I can look back again, going back to appearances before the committee in 09, 10, 11, 2013, 2012 was another one, where the conditions have changed over time.
There
in many
was
ways.
one, yeah, that I had a question on when I was going through them. There was one that was allowing, when we were originally going to build a larger smoking enclosure, I believe, or a smoking patio area, we did get permission via the ALRC, this body, to carry drinks out into that area, but no ordering drinks into the area. Do you see that in your records at all, and does that?
I do. Here, you can look at, this is the most recent one of the latest history. But I took that to be the like building addition, if you will, that the plan commission approved, but you and Corey never built.
That's right.
So I was thinking that unless you have plans to build that, that we should just leave it off the PRISM license. Is that,
Thank you.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
You don't have intentions of building anything outside?
No.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is all then.
Yep.
Thanks very much, Rico.
Thank you.
Further questions of the applicant? Thank you. We have two people who have registered support available to answer questions. Mark Sanito, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yep,
And the same for Apollo Marquez? Marquez? Okay, and as I mentioned, those are registered to support and available to answer questions. Okay, I don't have anybody else in the queue. What's the committee's discussion? Oliver Rivera.
Thank you. And I'd move to grant the 18-plus entertainment license and Class B combination alcohol license with the following conditions. First, that, I'm just trying to keep this clean for the license here, so I think I'll revert to the language. Must abide by current security plan, including parking lot to be patrolled every 30 minutes. If I could say then parenthetically, with the understanding that the applicant will file the current PRISM security plan with the city clerk prior to the April 16th common council meeting. You don't need that language obviously printed on the license. Number two, food service must, I don't know, I'm rephrasing these a little, must provide food service until 1 a.m. Number three, premises expanded for 2 events each year to include the establishment's parking lot directly east and the parking lot directly north of 924 Williamson Street for the annual Fruit Fest and Willie Street Fair events. And I would add consistent to approved street use permits. And then lastly, that the condition be 296 persons.
And, okay, and we have a second. And since we've got two separate licenses, our Assistant City Attorney Allen, are you okay if we do this as one motion, or should we crank it as two separate? One? Okay. And those conditions apply to both licenses?
I have no problem with them being on both licenses.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the motion is to approve the 18-plus visual and performing arts license and the, where's our other one? And item 18 with the same conditions on both licenses. Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 19. New license for Layla's Restaurant LLC, doing business as June. And we have okay, we have 3 registrants. We'll have the applicant first.
I'm Layla Brukim, owner of June.
Okay, why don't you tell the committee what you have in mind?
Sorry, what's that?
Tell the committee what you would like him to approve.
Oh, a wine and beer license. I forget which class it's called. Sorry, I should have brought the paperwork.
Class B beer, Class C wine.
Yes. That's it. Please.
Want to tell the committee what the establishment is?
So I
Doing?
serve Persian food. I'm all about the food. That's why I'm not going for a full alcohol license. We close at 9. I think maybe once we get rolling, we might close at 10. I have a 7.5-year-old, 2 dogs, a cat. I like to go to bed at night. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I have a food cart that I take out sometimes, but I'm not interested in getting people drunk. I owned a bar for a year, or ran a bar, whatever you want to call it, and I never want that nightmare to happen again in my life. So wine and beer, people like to have it when they have their meal. It helps me pay the $3,100 a month in rent that I get to pay for a 40-seat restaurant on Monroe Street. That's about it. So again, all about the food. Maybe once in a while we'll do mimosas on Saturdays. I live on Monroe Street, and I actually have another restaurant around the corner on Regent Street. I have not had police activity there. Again, with that, we close early. I've had more issues with the building inspection stuff due to the requirements of a grease trap and all sorts of other nightmares, so I'm familiar with the city attorney on that in that respect, but I think it's you, maybe not. If not, I'm sorry. But again, I haven't had any issues there other than with the building stuff, so alcohol stuff has been fine. And again, there's no alcohol there either, wine and beer.
Okay, well, thank you. I've got one question for you from Mr. Fletcher.
A quick question, and I'm assuming this is the case. Item 30, you're going to be the manager, right?
Yes.
Of the place, okay. And then your, the kind of, the drawing that we have on the back of the menu.
Yes. That's what I serve.
Okay.
It's good food, come in.
How much of a change was this from Burgeritos, kind of?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
There were 2 barn doors that were up against the wall, and those are gone. So now it's just a wall.
Thank you very much.
And the food is better, so.
Thank you.
Further questions of the applicant? Assistant City Attorney Zilloway?
What is going on at the Regent Street location? Because building inspection reached out to me wanting to know if there was something that could be done with your liquor license duty or non-compliance with their request for you to bring that property into compliance with building code.
So currently, I am under the understanding that I've removed all of the equipment that they did not want me to have in there, and I have an email from the health department that states that I can use June as my base kitchen, prep kitchen, and just serve a very limited menu in the Noosh location. So instead of, we were serving pierogies, we will be serving sandwiches instead.
Well, according to building inspection, even if you do that, you still have to make those changes to the premises because the use of it changed.
Okay.
And they were just frustrated because they haven't gotten any response from you since November 2017 in terms of their.
I mean, they were just in a couple weeks ago, so.
Well, response meaning you haven't done the work that they have been asking you to do.
So there's 2 things here with that. Some of the work that they're asking me to do, one of the things specifically has to do with ventilation over a low temperature dishwasher, which has now actually been removed, but that is not actually a building requirement, and I think that it's a misunderstanding or that they do not understand that that's something that you do not need over a dishwasher. There's a lot of things that, even listening to you guys talk tonight, people don't understand about restaurants. You guys kept bringing up the blue thing in the one picture. That's a walk-in cooler that she wanted to put out there. Not that I should even be saying something like this, but there's just a lot of stuff that isn't
Well, right, but
exact and
since I sent the letter
understanding.
to you regarding that building inspection had been trying to get in touch with you, you have not contacted them.
I've left messages to talk to them. One of them came in, so I'm not sure what that
I
means.
emailed him today and he said they had not heard from you.
I can
So-
show you an email where I'm asking him questions.
Well, I'm just saying, I asked because I wanted to know for tonight whether you had reached out after you got my letter, and he said they have heard nothing. So,
They're supposed to come back, I believe, April 2nd. And Bonnie, the head of the health department, has also reached out to them on my behalf, and they have not responded to her yet. My last contact about any of this was that they were coming back in April 2nd to speak with me or to review everything, and that according to Bonnie, everything that I was doing was okay. We're not even currently open there, for the record, so because of all of this, and just due to, winter staffing, et cetera, so if there has to be some limit put on the alcohol license there, that's fine too.
so how long has this location been closed?
We have not been open now for, what month are we in? We're in March. Since November-ish, just early December.
That I was just wondering why you've been non-responsive to building inspection in terms of their request.
I don't think that I am non-responsive, and I can provide communications, emails, all of that if you would like to see those things. I would actually say they're not responsive to me. So when I ask them questions and try to get information on what I'm supposed to do, I think that they're very used to dealing with large corporations and specific types of restaurants again, and that they're not supportive of small, locally owned businesses.
I don't have anything else.
Any further questions of the applicant? Okay, well, you can have a seat. We'll talk about it, and if we have any other questions, we'll ask you to step up. Thank you. Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Verbeek. Has Pagritos surrendered their license?
No, I don't think we've gotten an email or anything, or nobody has stopped in actually physically surrendering their license.
Okay, thank you.
I do have two other registrants here. Fraser Gerd, wishing to speak.
Hi, my name is Fraser Gerd, 1526 Jefferson Street. I've lived there 40 years, familiar with most of the changes on Monroe Street. And also the Noosh place is, years ago, a friend of mine had Fawn Bone stereo repair in there for about 20 years. So I'm familiar with that building and everything. And I know that I haven't been there to eat. I don't get out much, but my wife has eaten there, a couple of picky friends, and they very much liked what was being served there. So I have high hopes that in a adequate, more modern location, very much more trafficked, right, with a lot of synergy between the various other restaurants, that this will be successful. There's, in my mind, been a hole in the restaurants along that stretch ever since Dardanelles had to close, because there aren't too many places where you can have the healthy or Mediterranean or these kinds of tasty food. So I just think it's a really good idea, and I don't know how you make it a noosh other than having excellent food, but this is the good enough size. You can have more covers, more turns, right across the street. You know, it's just right where it needs to be. So, and the food, I am told, is terrific. And Dardanelles was the only restaurant that I went to more than 3 times in all those years. So, thanks very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gerd? Okay, thank you. And lastly, James Bennett, do I have? Okay, you can use this mic over here, James. So introduce yourself and.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is James Bennett, and I'm currently the food and beverage manager at the Madison Labor Temple Association, and also their current liquor agent. I am opposing this particular license, and I would like to bring forth those reasons why. First of all, some of the statements that were just given became kind of shocking to me. First of all, with regards to this building inspection, this was triggered by many different things that Layla did while she was serving as the agent at the Labor Temple from January 18th of last year to the end of the year, approximately December 30th, between 20th and 30th. She put in an illegal sink without any plan approval, without any permits. She tore into a concrete wall without approvals submitted to the city, no plan review, no landlord approval, no board approval. I found that to be quite interesting for her comments. In regards to her opening, I live right off of Monroe Street, right behind, right at the Winger Apartments. And I drive past there quite a few times, and I see that her location is open during lunch. Those are just some of the things I want to respond to as far as her comments. With regards to the Labor Temple's position, we find ourselves in a very crazy predicament here. We don't like to shed bad light on anyone. The Labor Temple has operated since 1958, has done a good job in housing all of the building trades, plumbers, electricians, so on and so forth. They've done a great job doing Labor Fest to present community activities that provide a very low-cost, inexpensive facilities for the general public to rent out their homes, the hall for quinceañeras, weddings, graduations, so on and so forth. However, during these times as an agent, I found a lot of discrepancies. The first call of those discrepancies was a task that the Labor Temple asked me to do, and that is to take inventory of all the liquor and alcohol that was on the premises when she vacated in January 1st of this year. Okay. She inherited somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000 of inventory. None of that was accounted for. She was supposed to provide a list of all the licensed distributors in which she buys liquor through and from. Not only did she not provide the list of those distributors, but in addition to that, the invoices has not been provided to me as the incumbent. That's not mine, is it? Is it? I think it is. Okay, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
You're not alone.
Yeah, and to be smart with these things, you need to be smart. Okay, once again, she did not provide me with any of the invoices to be maintained on the premises for a period of 1 year, which her licensing through this committee expires on the June 30th of this year. Some distributors were contacted. They sent out their invoices, but due to the fact she was still the agent, they went to her, in which she failed to provide that and put that on board as a requirement. In addition to that, there were a substantial amount of unpaid invoices. The latest I just received that was created in May of last year. Unpaid order, she took constructive receipt of this product. The product is not in-house. The monies are not in-house. In addition to that, there's, sorry. Okay, due to these repercussions, we have been placed on COD. I'm sorry.
I didn't get a...
And please forgive me, I'm sorry.
I didn't get a request.
Okay.
The timer was still going when he was dealing with this.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Roger?
Okay. Okay, there's no, due to these issues, she has deteriorated the rating and the reputation amongst the liquor distributors, with a couple of liquor distributors, and we're now on a COD basis. She stated that there is a signed agreement that's involved to pay these items back. I received a text message from one of the board members that there is no such agreement in place. I would recommend, there's one other thing, the various locations that she said that she owns and operates, there is a possibility that since those items of purchases for beer and alcohol, it's a possibility, it's speculation and conjecture, that it was not for the purposes of the labor temple. Just one last thing in closing, I would suggest at least for this committee to get some type of satisfactory letter from the labor temple that there is some type of repayment plan in place for her to at least pay for the unpaid invoices that she took the fiduciary responsibility to, as an agent, when she was first assigned, to make good on that. That's all I have to say.
Assistant City Attorney Allen.
Thank you. I had a short sidebar with the committee chair, so I'd like to summarize, if I can, what your testimony is, and correct me if I misstate anything. That the applicant worked for the Labor Temple for a period of time and was the alcohol license agent for the Labor Temple during that course of her employment. That employment was subsequently ended, after which there was an inventory of the alcohol, the licensed alcohol that had been purchased for the Labor Temple. That inventory disclosure was a discrepancy between what invoices you had on hand showed you should have and what was physically on the premise.
That is correct. There was an initial inventory when she took over in January 18th with a couple witnesses. It was clearly noted. And I also had to do the same thing when I came on board. And based upon that, there was major discrepancies. And please keep in mind, one of the things that is not part of the liquor portion of it, but it leads back to integrity, that the Labor Temple was very lenient on our,
okay, I want to keep this short and straight to the point. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Now I've lost my train of thought. Okay, we were at the point where there was a discrepancy in the inventory. Additionally, there were bills that you've learned about that were not sent to the Labor Temple, but sent to, you believe, or have evidence?
No, the Labor Temple has a license in their name, so they're going to get the invoices. However, when she left, when she was there, she was getting the invoices. When she left, now the labor temple is getting the invoices, and here are those unpaid invoices. Now, when I I go to
There were
order
invoices
alcohol, yes,
that were incurred during her tenure as the agent that went unpaid.
That is
And
correct.
you've subsequently learned of those because the unpaid inventory or invoices are now coming to you.
and outstanding, and I have them here in this folder.
Did you bring copies of any correspondence or documentation between you and the applicant to substantiate any of these points that we've talked about?
We have contacted Layla on several occasions. She has not responded whatsoever.
Okay, that's not an answer to my question. My question was, have you brought copies of any correspondence between the Labor Temple and the applicant regarding these matters that you've testified to tonight?
Give me one moment. I don't believe so, but this is a,
Okay, while you're searching that, is there any legal action pending between the Labor Temple and the applicant related to her employment as the alcohol agent?
okay, the answer to your last question is no. I do not have any correspondence
Okay, what
from
about
the
the-
Labor Temple and her. The answer to your second question is that there are legal litigation or legal discussion that's going on that is definitely looming out there. And
There's
that is
nothing in the courts currently?
Nothing in the court system currently.
Is any of this matter been referred to any law enforcement agency for investigation?
No, sir.
All right. I believe that's all the questions I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Further questions of the applicant? Alder Revere.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat anything that you already asked and answered, sir. Thanks for being here. I know you've been here several hours now. But what I was most struck by was the beginning of your testimony about the building inspection.
Yes.
Code violations at the Labor Temple that you allege were caused by the applicant.
Yes.
Given the information from the Assistant City Attorney. And I should disclose that I believe every member of the committee did receive a copy of the correspondence from Attorney Zillavi to the applicant dated March 7th. I believe that the Deputy City Clerk did send that by email to the entire committee because of the City Attorney's Office had requested that it be separated at renewal time for possible non-renewal. Anyway, so with that aside, given the building inspection issues, the open case that our building inspection division has with the applicant at Noosh on Monroe Street, on Regent Street, the applications for Monroe Street. Could you repeat or go into more detail about the allegations you made about the illegal building activity without permits and any building code violation you have?
I'd be more than happy.
Building code information that you have that was alleged to be violated?
I'll be more than happy to. Without any permits, there was a double sink placed inside of the bar area on the non-operating hours, and so let's say after 5 o'clock, is put in by someone. There was no permits, there was no approval whatsoever. There is a air gap that was not in place, no backflow preventers. These things are clearly noted on the report. In June, I believe, Jillian Mendoza, the health inspector, is the one that conducted that. Mendoza informed me that she stated that she wasn't going to be there by the end of the year, so she's not going to repair it. I took the sink out myself and had it properly put in a whole new system and with the proper things available. I had Jillian come out to inspect our work and to basically tell us where she wanted things. That was one issue. The next issue is the wall. The wall is a supporting wall. In her attempts to make some type, Layla, to make some attempt as an access door to a patio, outdoor patio, she once again got some of the tradesmen to come in with a big concrete saw and saw up the wall without, once again, any permits, no plans. She cut through wires, she cut through some metal studs in the wall. She was ordered to stop, cease and desist that work by the board
By the
members.
Labor Temple Association.
By the
Board.
Labor Temple
Do
Association.
you know, was the building inspection division notified of any of these?
I don't believe.
Issues?
It's hard, I couldn't
You don't know
answer
one way
to
or the
that.
other.
I couldn't answer to that. Only thing I got sick and tired of hearing about the activities that have been going on there. I say, I gotta get on putting this place back together, so, no. But since then, the wall has been repaired. She asked, or they asked that she pay for those repairs. To date, she hasn't paid one penny toward the repairs.
Then the first issue with the sink and that related issue, so that's all documented by
That is correct.
Public Health Madison-Dane County because the sanitarians
That is correct. Jillian Mendoza.
actually issued orders on that.
Yes, Jillian Mendoza actually notes it on her inspection report of the air gap issue.
Very good, thank you, sir. I'm sorry you inherited all this at the Labor Temple.
I own 4 restaurants, so I'm kind of used to this.
Any further
Thank you.
questions of the applicant? Or, I'm sorry, not the applicant, but the speaker? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank
Would
you,
you
Kyle.
have a seat? If we have any more, we'll ask
Thank
you to
you.
come back up. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any other speakers in the queue. Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you. I have one question for the applicant. Hey there. So, did you say earlier that Noosh is closed right now?
Yes.
How long has it been closed?
Since late November, early December.
Like, how closed? Like, is it open some of the time?
We've done a couple of little pop-ups here and there, but not anything long-term.
When?
When what?
Like when, like, just one night or on a regular basis, or?
There was a few days in, I want to say March. There's a person, there's actually a couple that want to take it over and run it as a coffee shop, so they did a couple things in there for a few days.
Was it open on Friday, February 22nd?
That might have been when it was.
So who was operating it?
I was there along with the couple that wants to take it over.
Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Thank you. Alder Revere.
Actually, I do have one other question of the applicant, please.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. June isn't open yet, is it?
June is open.
Oh, it is open,
We don't serve alcohol.
but you don't serve alcohol?
We just serve food.
Okay, I see. So how long have you been open?
Since January 1st.
Okay. How much of a hardship would it be if you did not have beer and wine for another month? If you've already been operating that way since day
It will
one?
be unpleasant. It will be a hardship. I'm trying to pay right now a fair 15 wage to every single person that is working in my establishment, in addition to paying all of the utilities and the rent. We need this to kind of happen. Everything that he is alleging. Okay, sure.
The reason I ask is I'm more concerned with the official requests we receive from the Building Inspection Division. They very seldom come to us with an exasperation with a alcohol license holder. Coincidentally, the other recent example we had was on tonight's agenda. You sat here through it where you talked about the blue box, and that's 502 State Street. And I frankly see these as very similar official requests, official correspondence from the Building Inspection Division. They did the same thing with Koi Sushi at 502 State Street. We held that up because of concerns of building inspection. And I frankly don't see a big difference. I mean, I heard you say, maybe you want to clarify, I'll give you that opportunity. I heard you say, oh, you disagree that you haven't made any significant steps, I'm putting words in your mouth, but have made efforts to comply with the outstanding building inspection orders, and that you express some concern that you don't understand what they want you to do exactly, perhaps. But it seems to me that I would be hard pressed with an open building inspection case on an establishment where you're the alcohol agent and to as one person here grant a license, with that being the case tonight. But if between now and the next ALRC meeting, notwithstanding all the Labor Temple Association issues, pretending I don't know about that, but we do have, again, official requests from building inspection related to Noosh. So anyway, I don't know, do you want to add any more on that and try to discourage me from thinking that we should refer this and to give you another month to clarify things and come into compliance with building inspection?
What are we talking about here? What's going on at Noosh, or what's
Yes,
going on
I'm
with
talking
the
about
current
new, I'm talking about
restaurant, or
what,
with
I'm
what
following
he
up
just
on
said?
what Assistant City Attorney Jennifer Zillavy asked you about Noosh on Regent Street. Again, not South Park Street and the Labor Temple Association.
Just making that clear. So if it's up to, if this is what's going to hold it up, I will flat out say I will close Noosh down and give up that alcohol license and be done entirely with that building right now. I mean, it's been an ongoing thorn in my side, which is actually one of the reasons I pushed myself to open up June, so that I can have a pre-built kitchen by somebody else. Everybody did all the permitting work correctly. You know, I have a biochem degree. I don't have a building whatever degree. So I'm happy to close that down completely and give it up. If I can serve some wine and beer to my customers that have been eating there for 3 months and saying, when are you going to get this? When are you going to get this? Can't we bring our own in? And I say, no, you know, I have to go through these steps in this committee. I mean, I'm not cooking on the premise of Noosh at all. All of the things that building inspection is requesting to happen, I don't know how to explain how irrelevant this is, other than maybe talking about this lawsuit that happened with the bakers, home bakers people, that you are just trying to sell something very simplistic, and you're being held to the standard of what huge corporations would be doing. So then they, in turn, farmers' wives, you know, farmers market people said, okay, let's do this lawsuit so that we can show that we're not making a ton of money significant enough to warrant all of these extra things that are happening. June is in perfect condition. Everything that happens there is fine. I'm not sure why the two have to be connected, but that's, you know, bureaucracy. So.
Before I asked you the question, was it your intention to not pursue Noosh? That you literally had
Part
pretty
of
much
it is,
made up the
because
mind
it's
to shutter that and give that
in
up?
some ways, if what is going on with Bonnie and what Bonnie's okay with me doing there, if that's not going to work, if I go to this meeting on April 2nd or April 7th and they say, no, that's not going to work, I'm not going to put a $50,000, you know, $20,000 to $50,000 hood ventilation system into a Quonset hut. I would never recover that cost. There would be no reason for it. So I would close the door and pay, I think I have 14 months left on my lease there, and just not, you know, suffer through paying $10.50 a month on a building that I'm not able to use for, you know, serving some sandwiches. And I can list off countless restaurants in Madison that are cooking the exact same things that I was doing there with the exact same equipment that are not falling under the regulations that building is trying to require me to have there.
I'm sorry, I missed the importance of the date in April. What's that date in April again?
That's when building inspection is coming back.
Oh, that's your next due date, your compliance date?
Yes.
I see.
So.
It's not a court date, they have.
No, that is a court date. Sorry, that is a court date.
Oh, so you are being
August.
prosecuted in municipal court?
Yes. I've spoken with her before.
No, she's not a
Oh, it's not you? Okay, I'm
She
sorry.
doesn't
So I've
prosecute
spoken
building
to,
code.
you look like the woman a little bit.
You're uncanny. Double for Assistant City Attorney Lana Modis, perhaps.
So yes,
Lana Modis.
I've come to, I think even in this room,
Yeah, municipal court is this
yes.
chamber.
and they gave me, this was back in February, I believe. They gave me a certain amount of time to get things done. They came back, they did a reinspection, I think beginning of March, end of February. It didn't, the grease trap that was hooked up by a professional plumber, one thing was still not hooked up correctly, so they said this is not usable, either fix it or move it out of here. I've moved everything out of there.
Thank you. I don't need you to go into, a lot more detail. Thank you for explaining. So there is a date between tonight and the next ALRC meeting when you'll have a pretrial conference on your open
I've already had the
case for the-
pretrial conference. I will have the decision, I believe is what's about to happen.
like a trial then?
I guess. I don't really know.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Fletcher, did you have a question?
One question, and again, I don't want to get into the whole of kind of the Madison labor temple issue, but I want to go into the smaller box that actually involved some level of city involvement with the sink. Can you just explain kind of what happened there? Was there some
Yes.
fault on your side?
It's possible that
Okay.
that there was fault on my side. So when I was approached to take it over in the fall of 2017, I guess that was. So they wanted me to come in there because they know that I'm more about food. They want a sense of community happening in there. Blah, blah, blah. This whole thing that they sold me was complete crap.
Okay.
So
What happened
what
with
they
the
did with
sink?
the sink,
Yep.
so in terms of making food in that space, they did not have the ability to make food in that space because they did not have the proper sink set up. I requested that they put a sink in. They did not do that. One of the plumbers, because there are tradesmen that are coming in there constantly, I said, can you hook this sink up? And he did it. I'm not sure that you actually need a building permit to put a sink in when the hookups are all already in there. So the issue with the air gap, do you know what an air gap is?
Not off the top of my head, but
Okay, so for food, you need to have 3 to 4 different types of sinks. You need to have a 3 to 4 compartment dishwashing sink, a hand washing sink, and then a food prep sink. For a food prep sink, you need to have a certain amount of space between a normal sink is connected, the drain, it's continuous. There's no space in between. An air gap sink to prepare food in has a hole, and between the drain, the open drain, there's an open space. That's the air gap. The air gap measurement that the guy put in was like a few inches too long. So what needed to happen is he needed to come in and saw off 2 to 5 inches of the PVC pipe that is hanging into the drain. So that's the issue with the sink, so that we could wash tomatoes legally according to public health.
so would you agree or disagree with the findings of public health in that regard on the air gap issue?
That it needed to be fixed. So this is from, again, the annual inspection of the place. They find something like that at every single inspection, at every single restaurant in Madison. They are going to say your eggs are on the wrong shelf, or they're going to say this thing isn't measuring correctly, or they're going to say you need to have a backflow on your mop sink, which is a little tiny thing that you put on the back or on the end of the spigot. They always are going to find something. It's not a huge deal, and it's something that does not require you to be shut down, hence the fact that it occurred last June, and business went as usual.
Thank you.
I'd love to know if he has a building permit for putting in a sink.
Assistant City Attorney Allen.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think the committee has a good handle on how to, you've got some allegations from a party that's not sworn testimony. Didn't bring any evidence for you to review to support the testimony But I also wanted to alert you to the fact that there is a statute that deals with pending prosecutions and licenses. And if she were applying for a license for a premise that had violations that were in the process of being prosecuted, you couldn't issue her a license. That doesn't strictly apply, but I think you can weigh that in determining how to handle this license. So my one question to the applicant is, given that there were these violations that have gone unremedied in the city's view,
Sorry. He's talking to me. I'm sorry. Yes?
have you taken any steps to correct the violations? And by the way, I just want to comment here that you've repeatedly said, and I feel that I have to represent my client here and put it on the record, that we have one standard for building code. We don't have standards based upon you being a small business or a big business, and we often hear from the big businesses that you put your thumb on the scale of favoring local businesses. So it's an easy charge to make, but unless you've got the evidence to back it up, let's move on. So my question to you is, what measures, if any, have you taken to remedy the violations that you've been on notice for at least a year now?
So as I said, I had the licensed plumber come in to put in the grease trap. He did not do it correctly, again. So all of that equipment has been removed. And it is not necessary to have that equipment, according to the public health inspector, to do the preparation of the type of food that I'm doing in that establishment. I'm not saying that you're locally favoring, or you're favoring or not favoring. I'm trying to explain that there's a size and capacity of what certain spaces do compared to other spaces. I'm not saying that the city is being cruel to locally owned and operated spots. I'm saying that there's restaurants that do certain things that other restaurants don't, so having this one size fits all for a restaurant kitchen doesn't make sense necessarily. And that's all that building inspection is looking at right now.
Further questions of the applicant? I would just like to ask you a question to make sure I understand. At the establishment where you're asking for a liquor license,
Yes,
and the city has been in to inspect that?
yes.
Are there any violations there that?
No, there are no violations. It is a $90,000 kitchen that was put in by Kavanaugh, who is the leader in restaurant building in this city. 2 different locations have been in there before me. Nothing has changed whatsoever. So.
And you haven't had any licensing issues with the city folks or with the health department at the June location?
Correct.
Okay.
There are no issues there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant before I ever sit down? Okay, why don't you have a seat? And if we have questions, we'll ask you to come back up. Mr. Kano-Spina.
So I just wanted to understand if there is a city litigation for a different business, just want to make sure that I understood correctly, that does not prevent us from giving this license, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but it's something to take into consideration when we're thinking about it.
I think so. I think that statute expresses a public policy that you don't want people transferring a licensed premise that's undergoing prosecution, because then it becomes murky as to who's liable for the violations, for one thing, and who you can collect the forfeitures from. But I do also think it expresses a public policy that you have to be very concerned about establishments that have a licensed premise that are being prosecuted, and that is an appropriate consideration in the licensing process.
Thank you. So it is my understanding, according to the testimony of the applicant, that this particular, and with the questions that Mr. Landgraf asked, that this new establishment has no issues, has all the building codes are okay, that the neighborhood is expressing support. However, I would feel more comfortable if the applicant had finished whatever was happening with the city issues with the other business. So is there a way to postpone it for a month to have that done and then grant it, and then revisit, see what happened with the city? That's something that anybody will be in favor if I make a motion to refer 1 month?
Well, you can make certainly whatever motion you want. You ask a question, and I'm certainly going to give you what my thought on it is. I mean, Assistant City Attorney Allen is correct that there are broader issues that the committee may want to look at, but I'm also thinking that there probably are any number of establishments who may have a discussion with the city at one location, and it doesn't necessarily mean that things happen in all of their other locations that are not under some sort of order from the city. I mean, it isn't like you have one license for all of your establishments, you have separate ones. So it seems to be a murky issue at best. So Mr. Fletcher and then Mr. Donnelly.
I'm trying to remember, Mr. Chair. My memory gets slightly hazy on the issue, but I just kind of remember with the kind of Hail Mary Grill and Tiki Shack and kind of what was done there, and this business of surrendering the license as almost a precondition for kind of our granting of the license for the other establishment, and I think there was appropriate time given to the applicant to work with the city to come up with, some sort of, not necessarily a formal agreement, but an approach that worked. And I think in this instance, if to Mr. Kano-Espina's point, if a month would make a difference in terms of remedying some of the issues with the other establishment, and whether that involves surrendering the alcohol license or not, it would be good, and I think probably would make some feel more comfortable proceeding with this if there was an update to the memo or notes that we have received previously from the building inspection saying yes, this issue has been resolved in the following way, and work through. So I can see the merit behind Mr. Kano-Espina's point.
Mr. Donnelly.
First, a question for Assistant City Attorney Zilovy. Do you know what exact request we received from building inspection?
In terms of the license? Well, he asked if there was anything we could do with the liquor license to get her to comply with what they were asking for. And I think that he was referring to the liquor license for the Regent Street location.
Okay, thank you. So I'm wrestling with a couple of things here. The applicant has a an existing business that has had problems with building inspection, which have not been resolved to building inspection satisfaction. There's a new business which doesn't have any problems at this time, and we've been told this one will be different. There won't be any problems here, even though there were at the old place. And that's the sort of statement I'm skeptical of in general. I'm particularly skeptical here because the story we've heard has changed. So we heard that Noosh has been closed since November. Then maybe it was open a few days as a pop-up. So the reason I asked about Friday, February 22nd is because I went out to eat there on Friday, February 22nd. It was open. It was serving food and alcohol. The food was cooked there, and the applicant was not there. So I'm having trouble getting past that to having confidence in this new business. Now, obviously, our realm is small. We don't look at everything. We aren't in charge of everything. We're only in charge of liquor licensing. And so I'm trying to weigh that because I don't see a concrete threat to the health, welfare, and well-being of the community. On the other hand, I am not feeling trust and confidence in this situation. So I welcome input from my fellow committee members on how we should resolve this.
Assistant City Attorney Allen.
Yeah, I hate to do this publicly, but when a member of a public body engages in investigation, which whether it was intentional or just happened, but does testify to what they observed personally outside of the committee, I would ask that they recuse themselves because there is fairly substantial body of case law that may create an impermissible bias in the part of the committee members. So just advising Mr. Donnelly and the rest of you that it's not a good idea to do this.
Mr. Donnelly.
Well, I'm not going to stop going out to restaurants, but I will recuse myself from this discussion and this vote.
Mr. Grady. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your light was on.
My light was on.
Oh.
And I'm not Grady.
I can't count.
we don't. One of us is handsome.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's getting late. I feel a great deal of discomfort with this issue, and I will move to refer to the next meeting. And if I get a second, I'll just speak to it. Second. Thank you. I just, there's so much floating around here that I really respect and listen to the advice of our two attorneys, and I feel enough discomfort that if I have to vote up or down, I'm going to vote against. So I would prefer to try to sort this out, as I've heard, within the next month. And I appreciate my colleagues bringing up Hail Mary and the Tiki Shack. I'm thinking of others, the Mad Hatter, and we could probably come up with more issues like this. I feel really uncomfortable moving forward on this, and I'd rather defer it to get a little more information rather than make something that we may all regret, make a decision that we regret. So I respectfully urge your support on referral.
Mr. Kano-Spina.
So I second that referral. I think that I'm hoping that the applicant will be able to work with the city, will be able to, make whatever decision that the applicant needs to make about the other business and come back with a clear, my record is good now and I'm moving forward, as I believe the neighborhood is supporting this business and she's clear about making food, and food is what she wants to make. So I'm hoping that she will be able to do that in a month when she comes back.
Mr. Grady.
Yeah, I'm conflicted here too, because I think what we were asked to do was basically deal with the new restaurant and all these other issues kind of are clouding our decision. She doesn't really have any building inspection issues with the new one. That Quonset hut must be well over 100 years old, so I'm just wondering what kind of facility that is to have a restaurant in. I would like to vote on this tonight, but if the majority of people don't want to do that, they'd rather wait, then I'll wait too.
I have no one else in the queue. We have a motion and a second to refer this to our April meeting. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item is referred to the April meeting. So that takes us to item 20. We have one registrant. 20 is new license for Shiva Seki doing business as Mahan's Liquor. We have N. Agent Madron. You're going to have to pronounce that last name yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Mahendra Namsivayam. I am here to apply for the new license at 2900 block of University Avenue. And currently I have 5 licenses, liquor licenses. And I am in the business for 29 years in Madison alone. And the latest liquor store was at Oregon. We opened that liquor store on November 30th of 2016. So I was so excited and everything. Just after opening, about 10 days later, one gentleman walked in when we were about to close the store. He purchased a can of beer. So I checked his ID, and at that time I had some problem in my eye, and it looks to me, the 6 looks like 5, and I sold the beer to him. After I sold the beer, I realized that he's not a gentleman, he's a kid. Then I was given a citation. Then I promised Village of Oregon and the Oregon police that this mistake will never happen. And I bought a ID scanner. And from that day onwards, we don't have any other problem anywhere. And this liquor store, I will obey and govern the rules of whatever I have at Sadhana Wine Shop. That means no more half pint, no more 40 ounce, no more cheap wine, no more airplane bottles, like that. And also this liquor store is going to be one step above Sadhana Wine Shop.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Alder Revere.
Thank you. Hi, Mahan.
Hi.
I'll disclose to my colleagues that I've known you for approximately 24 years because of establishments you have downtown. So I'm just curious here, at the last sentence of your testimony, you said that the University Avenue location will be one step ahead of Sadhana Wine Shop in my neighborhood. Can you elaborate on that? Because I think Sadhana Wine Shop's pretty cool.
Like what we are going to plan there is to put all the high-end liquor and high-end wine like that. But we have everything at Sadhana also, but at the same time, we carry the medium one, like barefoot, $6.99, like that. So we will have that one, very minimum quantity at that liquor store, because I study the neighborhood, because I talked to the elder person, and we had a neighborhood meeting, and the way I look at the people around that neighborhood, they want all good stuff, not the cheap one. So that's what I said is going to be one step, a little bit above Sedona Wine Shop. We have Sedona Wine Shop for all the high-end stuff, but this is going to be a little bit more, because the other reason is there's a UW hospital next to the, about a very, not even a block there. So there are a lot of doctors and nurses are there. So they are going to patronize the liquor store also.
Well, I just hope Bob Keller's not watching us right now on City Channel, because he'll be jealous that John Flatt is getting a better store than he has. Because you know your landlord on Bassett Street takes great interest in you, in what you do.
Yeah, I know that.
That was a joke, sorry, everyone. The hour's late. On a more serious note, the uniform conditions downtown that you mentioned that you currently comply with at Sedona, I presented you a written copy of those at the start of the meeting. You've obviously had a lot of time to review those, and you've reviewed those with Alderperson Bidar, and you're saying you have no objection to any of those as currently written.
I will obey everything.
Very good. Good luck with the 6th store.
Other questions? Mr. Kane-Ospina. Okay.
With the conditions that were presented to him.
I'll second what I call the uniform, the downtown uniform, Class A license conditions.
All right, a motion and a second to, and that includes adoption of the conditions that were previously distributed, and you are comfortable with those conditions? You are comfortable with the conditions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Grady?
Yeah, I see this isn't sworn to. I guess I'm a little tired of receiving, these applications, and they're not properly filled out. And I guess my feeling is that, is there some process we can have that somebody checks these over before we get them, so everything's appropriately signed and filled out?
The state statute, the state statute was changed, and we're no longer allowed to require them to get notarized signatures.
Oh, you
on there.
don't? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I didn't know that. Thanks.
Alder Revere, did you?
I was just going to say, and I didn't want to publicly, contradict council earlier in the meeting, but I know that the last legislative session, the legislature amended the statute, and notarized applications are no longer allowed for alcohol or tobacco licenses as they previously were required by statute. So that's why you see them blank on everything. I don't know what the effective date of the statute was. I know it was last year.
Okay.
And my understanding is Quick Trip was the one that requested the change.
And I will say our newer forms don't have the notarization, so you won't see just blank notarization forms. A lot of these applicants now are catching the end, or at least referencing applications that you can no longer find online.
Well, this gentleman had everything else filled out, so I don't really have a problem with that. What process, do we go through any process in the clerk's office where when these things come in, if they're not filled out properly, they're called? And I don't think we should even look at these things if they aren't filled out properly.
Yeah, I do have, there's some, obviously, the one applicant we heard tonight, and that, I'm not proud of that, and that was accepted in that manner. It is, I am trying to make it a good point in the clerk's office to not accept any incomplete applications. At best, we can hold applications and not process them at all. And if the applicant wants to get back to us with any missing documentation, that's fine. But yeah, I think that we definitely need to move towards not accepting anything that's not complete entirely.
Good, thank you.
Welcome.
And I really don't have any problem with this gentleman. think it's a good application.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. No one else in the queue, no further discussion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. So then we are to item 21. New license for Atwood Restaurant LLC doing business as Bar Coralini. And we have Caitlin. Over there. Okay. You're going to have to work on saying your last name for me as well, so.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Simnicht. I work for and I'm a partner at Food Fight Restaurant Group. We are applying for a Class B liquor and beer license, a new license at 2004 Atwood Avenue for Bar Coralini. LLC is Atwood Restaurant LLC, nice and boring. So this will be our 20th restaurant. We have 2 other restaurants on that street, Tex Tubbs, Taco Palace, Monty's Blue Plate Diner. We're anticipating this at 75% food, 25% alcohol, based on the numbers we have from other restaurants. We will be open evenings, every evening except Mondays. We will be open until, we hope to be open until 1 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, with the kitchen being open the entire time, and during the day, Saturdays and Sundays. I can take any questions that you may have.
And we have one, Mr. Kane Waspina.
I don't have questions. I was ready to move for.
Captain Friedman has
Yeah,
a concern.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions or red flags. I just noted a new establishment opening downtown and wanted to at least there to be an opportunity for Caitlin to speak. And I already apologized to her for how long she had to wait, which was like an hour ago. So I may have I may have been a little conservative. But no, I don't have any flags. But appreciate she had reached out to me previously and you know clearly has experience. But just trying to be consistent in how I approach these things, so thank you.
Yep, I can respect that. Thank you.
Got 2 questions for
Yes.
you. Mr. Fletcher and then Mr. Donnelly.
Oh, I was going to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks,
You have
everyone.
no questions. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. And no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Oh, aye.
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Opposed? No. Okay. Motion passes. All right, so that takes us then to item number 22. Discuss liquor license renewal separation process. That was an item that Assistant City Attorney Zellaby put on the agenda, and she and I had a discussion about this, and it largely, and correct me if I'm, well, why don't you explain why you put it on, and then I'll offer my comments.
So last year, there was a list of separations, and we, meaning me and the police department, resolved a couple of those prior to the separation hearing. And so I told the people they didn't need to come to the hearing, and then some ALRC members were not happy about that and thought the people should have showed up. However, the year prior, same situation, and the issues were resolved. I had the license holders show up, but we had resolved the issues, and people were unhappy that we resolved the issues, and I still had them show up. So, what do you want?
Well, and in that regard, let me just tell you what Assistant City Attorney and Zellaby and I chatted about, and then perhaps you can weigh that in. Part of it, I think, in both of the situations was just simply an inability for the process to allow both sides to communicate, because ALRC members didn't know what the Assistant City Attorney and the Police Department were doing. They didn't necessarily have insight into issues that might come up with us. And one of the things that Jennifer and I talked about is I don't know what, a memo, an update, something like that, that she could prepare on a monthly basis that would go into our packet and basically keep us plugged in as to what's going on and who they're looking at and when it gets resolved, and then we'd at least know what's going on in their end. And there is some difficulty, or not difficulty, but concern about how much information you'd put in there, but you'd certainly be able to alert the committee to what you're working on and kind of what the status of it is, and if any member of the committee wanted to ask questions at this meeting, we would have a basis for doing that. Did I get that right?
Right, I mean, the concern is that if we are working with somebody to resolve issues, and then that comes to a meeting and somebody wants to have a discussion about it, and then down the road, I end up bringing them for a revocation or suspension action, that the well has been poisoned, so to speak, prior to the hearing. That's the concern.
So it's just the discussion, it's not necessarily the notification to the committee?
Right, right.
So you could tell us who you're talking to, but if we wanted to talk to you publicly at the meeting, that would be the issue.
Right, getting into the details,
Yeah,
right.
okay, got it. Okay, so that's the background. So I have nobody in, oh, there we have somebody in the queue. Mr. Kinospino.
My opinion is that if the city attorney has an agreement and has done the work, the person doesn't need to come in person because she has done the work, and we only act if she's asking us to act. So that's my opinion. If she's done it and she's not asking us to act, then there's no need for that person to come. But I do like the idea of having a report every so often of, hey, this may be something that I will bring in the future, or this is something that I'm working on with this particular business. So.
Mr. Donnelly.
So it's kind of like with the consent agenda, where if one person asks for something to be removed from the consent agenda, and then they say, oh, wait, never mind, it should go on there. It's like, well, somebody else might have also wanted it taken off. Similarly, if there is an item that is separated from the bulk renewal process, I think that I'm uncomfortable with there being a backdoor for it to get back in case anybody else has concerns. Now, if we have a number of items that have been resolved, which is great, I think we should put them at the start of the separated renewal hearing and bang them out real quick and let those people out of here and spend time on the ones that'll take longer. But I'd feel more comfortable once they're separated, getting to see them.
So to make sure that I just understood what you said, is that if the committee in some previous action had made a determination that we wanted to separate that license when it came up for renewal, you're saying they should be here for the separation hearing? No. Okay, then I heard it wrong. So you might want to say it again so I get it right.
What I'm saying is, if anybody separates a license so that it is not part of the bulk renewal process, I think they should come to the separated renewal hearing, no matter what's happened in between the separation and that meeting.
Okay, well, all right, then I probably explained it wrong, but that's what I thought I heard you say, that if somebody had previously separated a license and maybe the work that the assistant city attorney and the police department did with the applicant was acceptable to everybody, you would still want that applicant here. The staff could say, we worked with them and everything's okay, and maybe we put it at the front of the agenda so they don't sit through the whole meeting, and then we've kind of closed the loop, so to speak. Okay, well, second time I got it right. Mr. Fletcher.
Well, I agree.
You turn my mic on. instead of us.
Jeez. I got microphone problems tonight. Sorry about that.
I agree completely with Mr. Donnelly. I do recall the discussion from last year, and I just think having everyone appear kind of, and I guess the committee, somewhat on the same page in terms of an understanding of what's going on is maybe helpful, and that way it allows for questions of city staff as well, however vaguely they may need to be answered. So,
Alder Revere.
I would say ditto to all of the above. I too vividly recall the concern of some of, if not most of my colleagues, the fact that some were told that some renewal applicants were told they didn't need to be here, and yet some of us might have wanted to ask questions of them. I don't know that I was one of those last year because some of them might have been downtown. There were many downtown separations last year, and I suspect there will be perhaps a greater number of downtown separations this year. And I don't know if we're going to get into that tonight or not and give a preview to the committee, but I do think we should be consistent and just have everybody come. And if it's like the last couple of years where it takes 2 nights of renewal meetings, and I don't know if Attorney Zilvey was going to disclose to all of us tonight that the calendar will be moved up this year, so that she can be present, of course, as our prosecutor. Then I think that some leeway, just like Mr. Donnelly is suggesting, if there's no issues, take those items first, a quasi-consent motion or agenda. But similarly, if we're going to have it over 2 nights, perhaps give an option to those that have worked cooperatively with the city attorney and the police department to let them choose perhaps what night they come and visit with us. But I do think they should all appear in person. Thank you.
Mr. Grady.
Yeah, I think I agree with that 100%. I remember the first year I was here, the longest meeting I've ever attended anywhere was from 5:30 at night till 2:10 the next morning. And I think the next year we went to double sessions, which was a really good idea. So I agree 100%.
Okay, well, let me just try to summarize it to make sure we're all on the same page, that if a license has been separated through some action by this group or someone else earlier in the year, that they're going to be on the list of people who will appear. And Mr. Donnelly.
So you put extra words in and it made me confused, and I want to make sure nobody else is confused.
Okay.
What I was saying is if anybody separates a license for renewal, it stays separated.
Right. All right, we're on the same page. So if anyone has separated a license, it stays separated. And they will be instructed to come to a meeting. We will work out some sort of a process, perhaps if the separated reasons have been worked out, to be able to dispense with those quickly. And if it hasn't been worked out, then it gets on our agenda and we do what we normally do. The second piece of it is Jennifer will work on a format that keeps everything okay with her potential litigation, but find a way to alert us routinely with all of the things that she's working on. They could be separated items or not, but at least we'll have a flavor for the establishments that have come up on the radar screen of the police department or the city attorney's office. And then the third thing, which Alder Revere mentioned, is we are going to be sending out I think you're going to use a doodle poll for 2 meetings, and we need to advance them a little to make sure that that we have the benefit of Assistant City Attorney Zilvey to be here. So those, I think, did I miss anything? Are those the three things that we talked about?
In that vein, I know that I will have 3 licenses that I am pursuing non-renewal on. And so I guess it depends on how many separations there are for discussion and potential conditions, as to whether we might need a third night.
Okay. A busy year. Well, we should work that out and get it on everybody's schedule because, I mean, I personally would rather have 3 nights on my schedule if you only need 2, rather than do 2 and really cramp somebody's style to get it all done in a reasonable time. So,
And I will be gone May 15th through June 5th, so it has to be done before May 15th. So if y'all want to keep that in mind.
well, we'll have Jim get the poll out early so everybody, because there's a lot of people that have to get queued up for these. Okay. Alder Rivera.
Yeah, thank you.
I got the button.
Attorney Zillavy just mentioned the dates that she's out of the office. I just wanted to give a preview for all of us when we generally think these special meetings will be. Obviously, Jim will poll us. But is it the intent as of tonight that we would try to have all decisions made prior to May 15th then? 'Cause I
Not
know
the
there's a-
decisions made.
Okay, 'cause
The-
I know there's a
the-
statute that requires the city to act by June 15th.
Right,
of
and the
each year.
council meeting is, I think, it might be the 4th,
I can
or
look.
maybe it's the week after that. Or maybe it's the 11th.
No, it's June 4th. June 4th and June 18th. Now, for non-renewals, we've often had those hearings after June 15th. That's my recollection. at
Well,
least, of
and where
non-renewals.
we've renewed it, and then I do it as a revocation.
Oh, I thought we actually had some that were labeled non-renewals after June 15th even, that, because it slid because of scheduling issues. But anyway, that doesn't. So we would have potentially 3 special meetings before the regular ALRC meeting on the 15th. So there would be no renewal matters on the agenda, our regular agenda on May 15th.
Right.
Okay. So, because usually it's that May meeting, as we all know, where we do the bulk of the 99% of the renewals.
Right.
But that would be done at a special meeting instead prior to that. Can I just ask too, as of now, do you anticipate that any or all of the 3 you've previewed for us will be contested non-renewals?
At this point, I think they
They're all
will be
contested?
contested.
Okay. I mean, Alderperson Carter has given me some specific concerns. Are some of these in the 14th?
2 are
district?
in the 14th.
Okay, they're the ones that she talked to me about then?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Do we wish to share, I'm looking at Attorney Zillavy and Captain Friedman, do we wish to share with the committee that generally we should anticipate seeing several campus area establishments at one of these 3 nights, or more than one of the 3 nights, or 2 nights, or, I mean, do you at least want to give them some preview to that, even though without naming names of establishments, or?
You mean for the conditions?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right.
Just to give a sense of how many establishments there might be.
I think, is it 8?
Separated as of now.
Do you want to speak to that?
Do you want to say anything about that? or-
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to open a Pandora's box. But yes, so we will be seeking to expand some of the conditions that we found to be very successful in the 600 block of University. And we met recently to identify what we think the next tier of establishments are that make sense given ongoing safety concerns and violent behavior downtown. So think we'll be probably about doubling the size. We'll be asking to double the size of that footprint in terms of number of establishments. And I think we've got the list fairly well identified. So not only would we be most likely bringing the original establishments in, but as well as the new ones to continue that practice and expand it.
Thank you. Yeah.
And if we're going to have several meetings, are you going to schedule it so that all of the downtown stuff is in one meeting, so we kind of have?
I think that's what we did last year, is we tried to cluster them, and so, yeah, and I'm gonna guess at Central probably one night for sure, and then maybe a bunch of the other stuff can be done on the other night, so we can share that out, but I will try to do that, just given the numbers. That makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate all the work you're doing to help make the process work as efficiently as possible this time around. Anything else on 22? Okay, recommendation on entertainment license requirements?
Can we refer that to April? I'd like to give that a little more thought before I speak to it.
All in favor? Oh, sorry.
No, we don't get you.
Roger, I'm sorry, I didn't see your light up.
Cut it away my entire.
That is a spurious comment. Now that the brain is engaged after the mouth, I said nothing of note.
Oh, okay. All right, so motion and a second has been made to refer item 23 to our April meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anything on calls for service, Captain Friedman? Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you. I have a question for Captain Friedman. It looks like there were a number of calls for service at the Red Rock Saloon. How much of that is stuff that actually happened in the bar? Is it a significant amount of just things that were on the street that happened to go to that address?
So the issue that's been an ongoing issue with calls for service reports is that often a landmark has to be identified. Now, I can't speak specifically to Red Rock, though I was out there Friday night into Saturday, and I know there's some activity there, and there have been some incidents, but what we do is we have to go through the actual reports and then determine, was this directly related to the establishment? Was it just happened to be in proximity to the establishment? What was the linkage or not? And so on any given report like that, looking at it, at a very minimum, we should not assume that all of those reports are directly related to the establishment, and there could be a number of reasons why that is. So, but I have not seen, we know that that's in the area that we're concerned about, and so we're giving it extra attention, but not a significant issue beyond other issues down there right now.
That's exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Any other issues with regard to calls for service? Anything with regard to licenses?
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right, that takes us to the end of the agenda. Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.